Board of Supervisors, February 17th, 2015. We'll start with a salute to the flag, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Apologize for the late start. There's one piece of information we needed to kind of get to have to us here before we started out. Oh, thank you, Mr. Kinney. Appreciate that. Yeah. No problem.
Thank you,
No
sir.
problem. Okay. Before, okay. We'll start with the roll, please.
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Mr. Boraski?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dents?
Here.
Mr. Rocco?
Here. Okay, thank you. We did have a executive session before the meeting. Mr. Clark, want to give a summary, please?
The board held an executive session to discuss matters of personnel and litigation.
Okay, thank you. First item on our agenda is public comment. Just a lot of names on the list and a lot from outside of the township. Just so people who haven't been to one of our meetings are aware, the public comment period of time, 45 minutes, is really geared toward issues that are not on the agenda, public concerns, things like that. We do have public comment for each agenda item. And so if there's a specific agenda item you're here for, which I think that I know which one it is, then you can wait until that agenda item, and we have public comment for that agenda item. So we do have quite a few names here. If you signed up and have chosen, that you're just going to wait and speak later, that's fine. Just let us know. You don't have to sign up for the agenda item speaking. This is just a public comment, the general sort of issues and concerns public comment. All right. So, Madeline Jones.
Good evening, Madeline Jones, Falls Township. Good to thank you all for coming out. Thank you. No matter why you're here, thank you. Just looking to see what any conversation has been going on regarding Tyburn Road at New Falls Road. The bumpity bump, bump, bump. Okay, it's getting worse. It's probably going to be much worse every time I drive over it. I'm afraid my undercarriage is going to be on Tyburn Road. So please, let's see if we can have some conversation somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is a PennDOT road. I know it's been a concern about, about its condition. It is sort of like going over a washboard. But certainly we can talk to PennDOT. I think they've been getting in more. For a while, there was no projects at all because of funding issues, but I know obviously that's been changing. So we can certainly talk to them and see if they have any plans for it. But okay.
Okay, it would be nice to know what caused it also. If it's a lot of the floodplain that has seeped under the roadway. We also have the cemetery there. Then I thought no, because it would affect the cemetery also.
No, I don't. Yeah, I think it's wear and
But
tear.
something's affecting it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joseph, is it Myers? Meyer? Okay. You wish to speak, or?
We're here on behalf of the Wawa expansion.
Okay, we'll come to that later on. You can speak then, is that all right? Okay. Anthony D'Amico? Same issue? Okay. This one's tough to read, I apologize. 129 Makefield Road, I can see the address. Okay, it's tough to read the name.
I'm going to speak on the Wawa.
Okay, all right. Dave Ricca? Okay. George Banyan? Is that right? Huh? Same thing? Okay. We're moving quick. Mary Leshuk? Okay. Sean Stillwell?
On Wawa.
Okay. Jeff Tyerty? Okay. Joseph Hobby? Okay. Robert Sherry? Okay. Yeah, Joel Rosenben? Rosenberg. Wawa? Okay. All right. All right, those are all the names on the resident sign-in sheet. Are there any other, before we move to the non-resident, Are there any residents that wish to speak about something else that's not on the list?
Some of them on list?
Yeah, yep, you said, yes, yes, Sir Wawa?
I'm a resident.
Yeah, I know. I just noticed that you were signed in on the other sheet. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll move on to the non-resident sign-in sheet. I see a J and a P, but I can't read anything else.
You got a resident in the back wants to talk. The woman in the back wants to talk.
I'm sorry?
The woman in the back wants to talk.
Somebody about, is a resident about something besides? No? Okay. Oh. Yes.
Non-resident for Wawa.
That we're going to have some people coming in late. I just said a little bit ago, that's fine. But when we come to that agenda item, we do open up for public comment. So you'll have a chance to speak then. Okay. Mike Furley? Wawa. Okay. Dennis Mullane, is that right? Wawa too. Mark Berkeley? Okay. Is there anybody, I probably just should have taken your advice. Is there any non-resident here to speak on anything other than Wawa? Okay. All right. Well, then that was it before, let's do Wawa now.
Yeah.
Do it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to readjust our agenda here a little bit. We're going to have, we're going to move item 7 up to number 1. Okay, or up to number 2 rather. Consider purchase of an F-550 dump truck with plow and an extended cab pickup for Public Works Department. Joe Arneo, our Public Works foreman, has been here in the building since 3 a.m. He asked if we could move him up the list a little bit so that he could go home and get a few hours sleep before he has to come back here. So, Mr. Gray, I don't know if you want to introduce anything or just kick it right to Mr. Arneo.
Yes, Joe Arneo provided a memo regarding the purchase of a new Ford F-550 dump truck with four-wheel drive, new plow and spreader, and a new four-wheel drive Chevy crew cab pickup truck. These items are from the co-stars list. These amounts have been budgeted in the 2015 budget. Total amount of all 3 items is $127,162.86. The board is asked to consider this item tonight. Mr. Arneo is here as well.
Okay. Mr. Arneo, thank you, and give our thanks to the rest of the guys on the crew for an excellent job, as always, with the plowing.
Thank you.
Just, if you don't mind, just give us an idea of what exactly what are we using the vehicles for? Are they replacing vehicles? Are these additional vehicles?
The 2015 F-550 with plow and spreader will replace a 1990 dump truck. The chassis is available now. If we wait until after February, the chassis price is going to go up because we won't be able to get it 2015. We'll have to jump to 2016, and we probably won't even see it until Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we'll have a cost savings, and the truck is exactly what we need. Mm-hmm. And it's it's an everyday truck, plus plow spreader.
Okay. Okay.
It's got a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on the truck, and then a 5-year, 60,000 on the powertrain. We have 3 other trucks exactly like it, and so we kept the specs pretty much the same for parts, interchangeability, etc.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions?
No. I have none.
No. I know Mr. Boraski's glad you're buying a Ford. Or at least one of them's a Ford, right?
One out of the 2.
He
One
might
of the
not
2.
be happy with
So
the second.
he's
We all drive Fords except for Mr. Rocco.
he's half happy.
What?
No other comments or questions?
No, I have
No?
none.
All right, any public comment needed on the vehicle? Seeing a couple of hands, is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Ms. Jones?
Just question, is there a trade-in on this purchase?
No.
Okay, thank you. If not, why not?
You have to use Mr. Arneo.
I would know why.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
have to
you.
use Mr. Arneo is saying if you'd seen the truck,
If you
we're
had seen the
getting rid
truck,
of-
you'd know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Jones, we usually auction off the vehicles after they're taken out of service
Yeah.
every couple of years.
Yeah, if they have any kind of value, we usually auction them off, and most of the time they're usually bought for parts, $100, $200 for an entire car that might have a couple 100,000 miles on it. It's been used to, like in this case, been spreading salt and brine, and it's not in good shape. So, sure.
Is it worth donating either to a donation fund or the tech school for their auto shop?
Unfortunately, no. Too rusted, can't inspect it.
We did donate a police car last year to the tech school.
Right. Mr. Kinney?
I'm just gonna keep hitting these buttons on this desk.
Joe says we need it, we need it. Pass it.
Thank you. Getting your exercise. Okay, any other, see no other hands, motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're looking at the purchase of 2 vehicles in the amounts of $127,162.86, according to the February 10th, 2015 memo. Is there a motion to purchase the 2 vehicles?
So moved.
Second?
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hale.
you. Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for moving me up. Appreciate it. Night.
Yeah, do whatever you think.
We have people here that are paying.
Yeah, whatever you want, Bob. Go for it.
All right, we're going to go to what was originally agenda item 2, presentation from Waste Management. They here? Oh, there's Mr. Jennings.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Jennings, law firm Curtin and Hefner. I'm here on behalf of Waste Management this evening. I'm accompanied by Tara Hemmer, who is the senior executive for Waste Management in this region and the president of the Waste Management of Pennsylvania facilities here in the township. What we'd like to do this evening is give a brief overview of the development of the port facilities at Fairless and seek your consideration for an amendment to one provision of the host agreement to bring that into line with the development of those facilities. As you know, the port facilities in Fairless were accommodated or developed initially to accommodate the Fairless Works over 60 years ago. It is today the northernmost commercial port facility in the upper reach of the Delaware. Waste Management acquired the west side of the port facilities in 1988 and has used that historically for contractors to bring in building materials primarily. The other side of the port, the east side, which is part of KIPC, began to be developed in a more commercial way in 1995 with the Novolog Company, and for the last decade by Kinder Morgan, which is the operator on that side of the port today. As commerce began to develop, there was a need to construct a turning basin in the channel, and that was accomplished initially in 2002, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, among others. And when that needed to be deepened in 2010 for the safe passage of vessels and turnaround, it was, in my recent experience, the best example of a public-private partnership in recent memory, where a number of the operators, the county, and the township contributed toward the non-federal share of getting that project done to enhance maritime safety, economic development, and environmental considerations as well. Since 1997, Waste Management, working with the Corps and the Commonwealth, has provided dredge material capability or handling of that at the Fairless facilities. So this is one of those unique situations along the river where when there is a need to dredge and a need to pick that material up, there's actually some place to put it down and to handle it correctly, all fully permitted. Now, what we're looking to do today is Waste Management in the last couple of years has invested nearly $7 million in port permanent improvements on its side of the dock. New bulkhead area, new ENS controls, fenders, and the like. And what we'd like to do is make that port available, those facilities available for the receipt of solid waste from time to time. The board had considered that and approved it in response to some emergency relief actions in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. Today we're finding more of our public sector customers are inquiring for that capability, as these days that's actually a more environmentally preferred way of receiving material. Now, I did bring a description or a photo of the port in aerial, and I apologize to the audience for not having another, but if I may approach and just indicate, you can see the port area where the dock is located. Just to the north of that is the proposed Fearless landfill site that we've worked on for a number of years. And what we're talking about are some improvements on the left side of this photo, the westerly side of the port, for development for facilities to receive additional vessels. The workforce that is there currently, 22 full-time jobs, and as many as 55 when a vessel is in the port. So with the amendment to the host agreement that we have proposed, would simply restate that solid waste, as defined in the agreement and as allowed by permit, could be accepted at the facilities. The same prohibitions relative to regulated materials would still apply. And that's our request tonight. And in view of the audience in your agenda, I hope that concise presentation was sufficient. I'd be happy to answer questions, as would Ms. Hemmer.
Okay. Sure.
If I may, thank you very much. My name's Tara Hemmer, as Tom mentioned, and thank you so much for the time today to speak on behalf of this request. As Tom mentioned, we've made a significant investment in the port facility, and we're looking forward to the growth of that facility, along with bringing on port contractors and to continue to grow and develop different commodities that come through the port. And certainly opportunities that come up from time to time related to solid waste, we would want to consider that for the long-term development of that facility. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
Just, Mr. Gray, is it true that this is the 100th busiest port in the United States?
I am not aware of that.
Mr. Snipes told me that one night. I was just wondering.
I believe Mr. Jennings has an answer.
Did you know?
Yes, Mr. Galloway. According to Penn Ports, which is part of the Department of Community and Economic Development, some years ago, this facility was deemed the 100th largest port in the United States. And what that means in rough terms, Waste Management historically has handled 1 million tons of cargo at the port. It's been more on the Novolog and Kinder Morgan side. I think in the peak year when our port committee was meeting and looking at the turning basin, the peak year might have been 7 million tons of cargo handled at Fearless, coming in and going out.
Thank you. I'm good.
Mr. Boraski?
Can you comment at this time how many ships you think it would be, or barges?
Sure. You know, we don't have any immediate plans right now to accept any material by barge, but we anticipate it could be roughly 1 to 2 per day.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
Can you explain how the material comes in on the barges? People, you hear waste coming in, and you get the image of a barge piled high with trash.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing that I can tell you, number one, is we will work really closely with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and, of course, the United States Coast Guard to make sure that anything that is shipped to our port is shipped in accordance with all regulations. If we're talking about municipal solid waste or regular trash, that would have to be containerized. That's the only way we would accept it at this port. So it would be in sealed, leak-proof containers. And I think, Tom, you might have a photo that you could share.
Yeah, that's my question.
So you can see the containers in that photograph are completely sealed. They look like standard shipping containers.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's all I had, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rocco?
That was the question. How's it getting in, and it's going to affect the people on the river? But if it's in cargo tanks, I think that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's only questions I had the questions I was going to ask. All right, so what the Waste Management is looking for a second amendment to the amendment and restated solid waste management agreement dated September 20, 2005. This agreement, 2005 agreement, I know Mr. Clark was involved and I was involved in, Mr. Jennings was involved in as well as some others. A lot of it was kept from previous, a lot of the language was kept from previous agreements going back to the 90s. And of course in the 90s you didn't have the containerized shipping of solid waste. And so there was a legitimate reason to put a ban on any kind of waste coming in by river because, as Mr. Dent said, you get this sort of picture of a garbage scow sort of coming up the Delaware, and it's not a picture anybody wants to see. Times have changed, obviously. The regulations have changed, and this is a completely different way of bringing in waste. And as Mr. Jennings said, in many ways it's more environmentally sound because it's taking trucks off the road. It's less vehicles, obviously less diesel fuel being used, and so it's definitely in that sense can be seen as a definite more green alternative. We'll open up for public comment if anybody has any public comment needed. Seeing a few hands, is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Mr. Binney?
Good evening. Brian Binney, Falls Township. Would this modification change the amount of material that would be brought in on a daily basis?
I don't think Dale. No, we had this discussion a little bit.
The answer is no, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Binney. It doesn't change anything, simply the means by which the material is received.
So it's coming by ship instead of by truck. Okay. Or barge, not ship. Ms. Jones?
Thank you. And where's the ports of origin on these barges or vessels? Please.
So, thank you. Like I mentioned previously, we don't have any immediate plans to barge material, so it could be from anywhere in the eastern United States that's on water.
So they'll be domestic, not any foreign related.
So it would be domestic cargo, yes, domestic municipal solid waste.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? See no hands. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Excuse me. All right, so the board is looking at the proposed Second Amendment to the amended and restated solid waste management agreement dated September 20, 2005. Is there a motion to approve the proposed amendment?
Make that motion.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, members of the board.
Okay, next item on our agenda, the extra space storage amended final land development, 915 Old Lincoln Highway. Mr. Gray?
Yes, as mentioned, this is for extra space storage. The applicant has prepared an amendment that will increase the proposed driveway with servicing the Truck Smart lot from 24 feet wide to 30 feet wide, and the rerouting of a water service lateral servicing the extra space storage proposed office building.
Okay. Evening.
Good evening. Frank Dillon on behalf of the applicant. I have with me tonight John DiBenedetto, the architect for the project, and Dennis Curick, the engineer. We're seeking to amend the final plan as just stated. The two minor changes are to enlarge the driveway from 24 to 30 feet to allow trucks easier access to the property. And the second one is TOFA's met with TOFA, and we require a water connection, and we have to have an easement across the property. Could you point that out, Dennis?
Easement runs here across
So that's two simple things that we're asking for. There's two review letters, one from T&M by Mr. Sullivan. It says that all technical issues have been resolved. And then there's Remington and Vernick's letter by Mr. Beach. 1 through 7 indicate they've been satisfied, and number 8 is a will comply.
Okay. All right. All right, comments or questions from board members for Mr. Dillon? Mr. Galloway?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed the first part of what you said. Did you say that the fire marshal's concerns were addressed?
No, I said Mr. Sullivan's has a review letter from T&M, and the letter says that all the technical issues have been resolved.
So,
Have you seen,
Did you see the letter from
have you seen the fire marshal's letter? You can have this
I didn't-
copy
no,
if you
I
want.
didn't see the fire.
he indicates that you're going to need separate fire and sprinkle systems?
We understand that, and we will.
Sorry.
We understand that, and we will comply.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brasky?
No comments.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
None.
Yeah, we just approved this plan, I think just a few months ago, actually. The final plan, this is just coming back for amended. Mr. Sullivan, any concerns or questions on your part?
Not at this time.
No? Okay. All right, so we're looking amended final land development. It's for extra space storage, 915 Old Lincoln Highway. Is this a resolution, Mr. Gray? No, I was going to say. All right, is there a motion then to approve the amended final land development for extra space storage?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to shift our agenda a little bit, begging the understanding of some of the people that are here for a couple of the other agenda items. Item number 10 is an agenda item that obviously has brought us quite a crowd tonight. Before we begin, I'm going to make just a statement about what we're doing here, and I'm going to ask our solicitors to also chime in a little bit. Doing that because, and we will, as I said, we'll have some public comment for anybody who still feels the need to speak. I stopped getting the newspaper, the Courier-Times, several years ago, and one of the reasons why I did was because of the article that was in the paper yesterday, which did not give a whole lot of accurate facts in terms of what we're doing this evening. And so let me just explain what we are doing and why we're doing it, and that might address some of the concerns people have. To begin with, we are not approving a Wawa construction project this evening. Many of you may have been at the zoning board meetings last year that were going on. There were several of them about the proposed Wawa facility with a Rite Aid and a fast food restaurant. The zoning board turned them down, and that plan is dead. This board, this township, has no new plan in front of us regarding this Wawa. They may resubmit one. We don't have one. We're not acting on one this evening. What happened was that during the process of the zoning board looking over and our zoning officer and our engineer looking over the plans, it came to our attention that there were some issues with our ordinance that relates to gas stations that are out of date or have been preempted by state law. In other words, part of our ordinances were very old, part of them were actually illegal. While those hearings were happening with that proposed development, we were kind of going through and getting an idea of some of the things that, quite frankly, needed to be changed. But we weren't going to change anything until after we knew what was going to happen with that project. Once that project was killed by the zoning board, after the review period or the appeal period had ended, because they had a chance to appeal if they wanted to. Then we started looking at, okay, let's make some of these changes that really have to be made. Some of the changes are very, very minor. For example, our ordinance refers to gas stations, which is not really a term that's used anymore today officially, legally, fueling stations, because it could be gas, it could be diesel, it could be natural gas, it could be any of those. So that's actually one of the changes we're making, is that any time the ordinance says gas station, we're changing it to fueling station. That's one of the things we're doing. Some of these changes needed to be made because we haven't approved a new gas station in this township in 11 or 12 years since the BJ's gas station, which is just a few hundred yards from where we're sitting right now. And so, we really haven't had a need to look at this part of the ordinance until this issue came up, and then we started realizing that in some cases, which I'll ask our solicitors to expand upon in a minute, state law actually made our law or preempted our law. So we had restrictions that the state law did away with. Had we been challenged on those, we would have lost. And so it makes no sense for us to keep them. Some of the other changes being made revolve around setbacks in terms of how far fuel pumps have to be from a setback line from right-of-way. Understand that even in the old ordinance, that proposed development that is now dead would have qualified without a variance. So very little of what we're doing this evening has any real impact or would have had an impact on what that proposed development was. It's been spun that we are doing this just so they can come in, and that simply isn't true. If we wanted that, we would have done this while they were still in front of the zoning hearing board. If we wanted that project to go through, the township, as a party to any zoning hearing board hearing, could have sent our solicitors to any of those many hearings that some of you were at, and could have voiced our feelings that we were in favor of the project and we didn't really mind. The variances went through. The zoning hearing board is an independent board. They didn't have to listen to us. They wouldn't have had to, but they could have if they wanted to. We didn't do that. We didn't take that position. We let the zoning hearing board make their decision. We didn't appeal it, which we could have done if we really wanted this project to go through. What we did do was look at issues in our law and our ordinances that needed to be changed. And that's what we're doing, is changing them to make them more in line with what is applicable in today's world. One of the issues that we're changing, the ordinance referred to different types of gas pumps. It said for every full-service pump, you had to have a self-service pump. Or I think I had that backwards. For every self-service pump, you had to have a full-service pump. Well, this isn't 1985. Pumps aren't made that way anymore. Pretty much every pump that's made today, or in gas stations, is full-serve and self-serve at the same time. And so that's just a change that needs to be made. You pull up to a pump. If you don't want to pump it yourself, you push a button, somebody comes out and pumps it for you. So therefore, it is both full and self-service. That's a change we're making, just to reflect what's reality in today's gas stations. So in terms of the combustibles law, I'll turn to our solicitors just to explain some of the things and why we have to change this, because our ordinance just is not legal.
Yes, Mr. Harvey, as you indicated, the proposed ordinance change this evening has what we would term 4 substantive changes. The minimum distance between service stations is being dropped from 1,500 feet to 500 feet, and the station must be located within Falls Township. During the zoning hearing board for the Wawa, we were made aware that the one station that was implicated was a station located in Morrisville. As we've discussed with the board, this is a protection that Morrisville doesn't give to its own businesses. So we are protecting businesses in Morrisville greater than Morrisville is protecting businesses in Morrisville. This is the one that would impact the proposed Wawa the most. We have also, this is the one that is bringing it in line with the Combustible and Flammable Liquids Act to reduce the distance from which a gas pump can be located from the property line. Our ordinance says 50 feet. The Combustible and Flammable Liquids Act says 10 feet from the property line and 5 feet from any buildings. As you indicated before, Mr. Harvey, while this is a very old act, in the 14 years that I've been the solicitor for the township, we have only approved one gas station, and that was the BJ's over across the street. And this issue was not involved at the time because their pumps are set back so far from their property line. The third substantive change is not really a change at all. It's a clarification. We are clarifying that the requirement that one full-service pump for each self-serve pump can be satisfied if the pump is equipped with a mechanism that allows the driver to call or request assistance. This is both the industry standard right now and also consistent with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And finally, we are increasing the number of inoperable motor vehicles a service station can have on its property from 3 to 6 at any time, and from 6 to 8 for a period not to exceed 2 days, provided the vehicles are awaiting repairs. This section has absolutely nothing to do with the proposed Wawa. This was made at the suggestion of the Township Zoning Officer. As the board is aware, and maybe members of the public are not, the Township is in the process of going through a comprehensive zoning review. Mr. Sullivan's office, the Township Administration, and my office have been reviewing the zoning code for the last several months, and this was an issue that was brought to our attention by the zoning hearing officer. It is not involved with the Wawa in any way because they're not going to be servicing vehicles at this property. Those are the 4 changes. Those are the 4 issues as they related to this proposed development. One other issue that you had not mentioned is the plan presented by the Wawa as originally presented. We'll still need to go back before the zoning hearing board. There are setbacks for the gasoline canopy, which are not affected by the changes we're making this evening. Setbacks for one of the buildings, which we are not changing this evening. Accessory structures in the front yard setbacks, which we are not addressing this evening. And most or all of their their signs will need variances. So the plan as presented originally by Wawa will still have to go back to the zoning hearing board.
All right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway.
Just said, I understand residents' concern over the Wawa project, but as we brought forth the agenda for this meeting, we had no idea that the Courier Times would print such an article and that we would be mistaken in what we're trying to do tonight. We're trying to update some things that in the course of things last year we found out were out of date. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Brasky.
No, I got nothing.
Mr. Dents.
No, we've been over it all.
Mr. Rocco. Okay. And I think Mr. Clark's point, this last point, was a good one, that even if the proposal that's now dead, if that same proposal were submitted again, even with the changes we're making, they still would have to go to zoning for quite a few variances. So this is, this is not the way it was portrayed. And as I said, we'll certainly listen to public comment. People have some, absolutely. Again, we don't have any plan before us. When or if there's a plan before us, depending on how they present it, it might have to go to zoning. If it doesn't have to go to zoning, it's still going to go to our planning commission, which is a public meeting. It would have to come to us for a preliminary development plan, which is a public meeting. It would have to go back probably to planning commission. It would have to go to our Environmental Advisory Council as well. It would have to come back to us for a final land development plan, also a public meeting. And those are talking, even if something were submitted tomorrow, and again, we're not under any indication that that's so. You're still talking months and months and months before anything. One thing I did want to mention too. Concern about, it's a concern that everybody up here has, and I know it might be a concern many people in the room have, about traffic. The original proposal, they were looking for access off of Route 13 for turning in and coming out. That is not anything we have control over. That's PennDOT. It's a PennDOT road. So they would have had to apply to PennDOT for that. PennDOT could give it to them or could not give it to them. That's nothing that we have any say over. I don't know if they applied for that, if they got it, if they didn't get it, if they're going to resubmit with a new plan. We have no idea. However, still, there were issues of concern with myself, and I know the other board members about traffic and what it's going to do to the intersection, which is already a pretty busy and complicated intersection. Mr. Dents and I were just at one of our fire banquets for one of our local fire companies over the weekend, and they have a lot of concern about the intersection of Pine Grove and West Trenton because of the light there. So that was something they were asking us to look into if this comes back up. So those are the board's concerns, and this is where it's coming from. And obviously, we'll listen to people's concerns and questions if they have some. I'll kind of work off the list I had before. If you're interested in speaking, that's fine. If not, that's okay. I will start with residents. Joe Nyers.
I just wanted to stand about the traffic problem.
Okay.
You guys say
Yeah.
something-
I'm sorry, you do have to use a microphone. I'm sorry, sir. If you want to speak, yeah, if you do have to use a microphone, this is audio and videotape, so sorry to make you.
Just a concern about the traffic problem. You state that there's an issue with traffic at that area. If you look at the Wawa at the end of the Parkway, that's a big nightmare, traffic-wise, and there's never been an issue there, so.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think traffic should be that big of a concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anthony D'Amico?
I heard what you gentlemen had said about.
Can you turn the mic up or down?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
I heard what you guys had said regarding the proposed changes in the ordinance or variances. But I do want to state some things I wrote down.
Sure.
And I'll start off by saying my name is Anthony D'Amico. I reside at 555 Stevens Road, Falls Township, 19067. In the event, I want to start off by saying that it would be unconscionable for this supervisory board to allow this Super Wawa to take place. I would like you to reflect on your zoning board to allow this Super Wawa not to take place. Excuse me. I would like you to reflect on your zoning board's decision as to the reasons why unanimously they were voted against the Super Wawa at this location, which you guys had indicated. I find it disheartening that someone with the stroke of a pen can arbitrarily change the variances in zoning to accommodate the construction of a Super Wawa at that location. I understand, I guess you're the solicitor? Excuse me.
Yes. Mr. Clark, yeah.
Right, so I didn't know what you guys were doing, but apparently you said for the last 7 months you were talking about making changes on the variances and ordinances, whatever, correct?
We were aware of certain things in our ordinance regarding service stations, one that needed clarification and one that we considered an anomaly, that we were providing protection to a business in Morrisville by the 1,500 feet. We also didn't think the 1,500 feet was enforceable. That's why we waited until the hearings were over before we changed it.
Okay. Well, my concern is not the filling station, so let's just put that aside. My concern is just being a resident, and I'll, going down here. I mean, if that ordinance or variance goes through, what you're saying is that every 500 feet, then someone will be able to put in a filling station. That's what you're indicating.
Correct.
Yes.
Which would make it a nightmare for everybody and all the businesses.
We've had one filling station go in the
beside the
last
point.
14 years. No, it's not.
Once you
beside
change
the
a variance or an ordinance, things change, just like ordinances and variances change. You need to dig deep down and put yourself in my position and my neighbor's position, living directly across the street from Super Wawa, knowing that up the street they are putting in more residential homes on the right side. Behind the Wawa there is more housing, and in fact that housing development, which you did indicate has to do with PennDOT, is not currently allowed to make a left-hand turn into their residence, and they themselves are current taxpayers.
Right.
Although I am one voice, I am a voice of many. If this Super Wawa does not go in, it will not be a hardship to the Wawa Corporation. But if it does go in, a Super Wawa, a Rite Aid, and a restaurant, that in fact will cause hardship to my fellow neighbors and my surrounding residents, as well as the businesses. These are some of the issues that you need to reflect on. Again, 24-hour lighting, tractor-trailer deliveries, supplies, noise, loud music, intercom systems, and traffic noise. Crime, police logs were submitted to the zoning board regarding the crimes at the crimes that took place in 3 other Super Wawas. Traffic congestion, which we know has got to be done by study, will double the amount of traffic there already. I live on the corner of West Trenton Avenue and Stevens Road. I can tell you right now, gentlemen, if you go there at the hours of 4 to 6 or 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning, I will assure you that there's gridlock now to begin with. And I'm stating that because I deal with it every day and I live with it. And I myself am not allowed to make a left-hand turn out of Stevens Road. So if in fact this does happen, which I'm hoping it doesn't, would only make it a worse nightmare for the residents of Stevens Road, Berwyn, to come out of that intersection and make a right-hand turn, which you're only permitted to do. Okay. Children and pedestrian safety crossing the street. Trash collections. There's not much more. There are so many possibilities that can happen with the amount of traffic that will be added to our community at that location. You need to evaluate and not allow this to be done. I will assure you that in time, there will be many people that will be involved in car accidents, pedestrian accidents, become victims of crime, and possible road rage. Occurrences due to the increase of traffic and congestion. It will be a complete nightmare. I am pleading with you, the supervisory board, knowing that you have not, okay? I am pleading with you, the supervisory board, to not allow this to take place. Do not allow the strike of a pen to change codes or ordinances that will make it to the benefit of the larger corporation. We all accept change. I'm a contractor. I understand what change is. But why would you want to change a community that has been here for longer than 50 years? Businesses come and go, but communities are here to stay. Your residents are here to stay. Your residents are asking you not to allow this to proceed. You have a wonderful base of people that live at this location. We are a whole community of people, families, and local businesses that will be affected by any decision. Why would you want to jeopardize our quality of life? Would you want the same for yourself? I don't think so. I can go on forever with reasons why I am opposed, but I believe that the ones I have indicated are sincere and represent our community. If you make this decision to allow a Super Wawa to be constructed at this location, it is letting us know that you are not about the community, but you're about big business. The residents of this community have supported Falls Township and Falls Township supervisors, not only in their votes, but with their property taxes. Please lead this decision to the right direction for your Falls Township community. Again, understanding that Nothing is on the table.
And Mr. D'Amico, we actually, I apologize to
I'm
not saying
done.
this for, okay, we have a 5-minute maximum.
Okay.
Bell actually
There-
rang quick
I'm
minutes
done.
ago.
This is
Okay.
it.
All
There
right.
are so many types of business that can go in that lot size. But a 24-hour Super Wawa filling station, please evaluate any decisions you're about to make. I thank you for your time,
Okay,
your patience, and your understanding.
thank you. Okay, getting next name on the list, again, I apologize, I can't read the name, but 129 Makefield Road, not sure who that was. Yeah, I apologize for not, saying it when we first started. We do have a 5-minute maximum. Obviously, we want to have people have a chance to speak. We have a lot of names on the list here if they still want to speak. So when the bell goes off, we will ask you just to kind of wrap up your thoughts. All right, please?
Okay, I'm just putting a name with a face. My name is Kevin Stillwell, along with Glenn Grafe. We are the owners and operators of Plaza Shell, the 600 feet Marsville Borough gas station that everybody is talking about. We've been servicing the community since 1962, that gas station. We currently employ 11 people, 3 full-time and 8 part-time, so we're a pretty big operation there. I lived in the area my whole life. I resided the last 18 years of my life with my family in Falls Township. I've worked at the Shell station for almost 30 years, and we purchased a property and a business in 2007. The zoning hearing board decision stated that an application must not create its own hardship when applying for a variance. Using a particular property to maximize profitability is not a sufficient hardship to justify granting a variance. They showed no legal hardship. They were not required to do any traffic studies, in my opinion. This is absurd. There were requests by Wawa for 11 variances. When they initially applied to the zoning board at the second hearing, Mr. Clark, they dropped 5 of their variances requesting, which were all related to signs and lighting, which I'm sure they're going to drop again. They also changed the trash location to take care of another request variance, and your proposed amendment eliminates the need for trash enclosures completely. Why? I mean, they worked that out. You can move it around. I think trash needs to be.
It's covered in another section of our ordinance.
It's actually, I was going to let him finish.
I'm just saying.
It's fine. We understand.
I'm just stating what I.
That's fine.
You can correct me.
Yep.
That leaves 5 of their requests, okay? So then I go, I think you are making a huge mistake by considering changing the distance from 1,500 feet to 500 feet. This opens the opportunity for service stations at every corner in Falls Township and removes another variance needed by Wawa. If we allow gas stations on every corner in Falls Township, it will change the dynamic of the neighborhood, including the old Acme site. What does it matter that I am in Marsville Borough? Do you think that Marsville Borough is the only one affected? Falls, Marsville, and Lower Makefield are all intertwined in that particular area. There should be no discrimination on what borough, township, and municipality I am in. We are all neighbors. And I like the fact that when you stated that 1,500 feet, it did not have that in there. The reason for the space ordinance, in my opinion, is to prevent and reduce the threat to the public health and safety from hazards of fire and explosions and from the danger of increased vehicle and pedestrian traffic accidents and congestion. Like I said, I've lived there my entire life. I know what it's like in that area. I grew up in Grandview. I currently live on Makefield Road, which is a busy traffic section on a road. With its sale of diesel fuel in a 24-hour operation, this will increase the influx of truck traffic, and with that will come noise and other problems associated with heavy truck traffic. On addressing item number 9, will the amendment that you propose at 9 allow every other gas station in township to go self-serve as long as they have a call button or the pumps? The reason I ask that is because a lot of the stations in that area are not self-serve. So I just want an explanation on that, but let me finish first. Plaza Shell, along with 2 other gas stations on West Trenton Avenue, are all full-service stations. The Getty on Lincoln Highway is also full service. The Sunoco on Lincoln Highway is half and half. I believe all of these stations are in Falls Township except for mine. We all have 2 employee gas attendants, which put us and other gas stations in Falls Township at a competitive disadvantage. Whether I'm Marsville Borough or not, it still puts me at a competitive disadvantage. Is there a need for the Wawa? Is it just going to take already established businesses, strip mine local businesses? That was an item that was brought up by Zupka when you were on the board, Harvey, in 2006, when they were trying to build one right next to here in the Burns. This area is surrounded by small, locally owned businesses. It will have a huge impact on the local economy of both Morrisville and Falls Township. Don't matter if you're Morrisville or Falls, they're all there. Lower Makefield's 100 feet from my station. Let me explain to you what's on West Trenton Avenue if you have not been on there. There are 2 7-Elevens, a Subway, a Dunkin' Donuts, 7 pizza shops, and there used to be 8 gas stations. Too many nozzles already on West Trenton Avenue. Most, if not all, are in Falls Township. There are 3 currently open for gas, 1 closed, which is an eyesore next to McDonald's. It's been that way for a long time. That's a blight site. And gas stations are very, very hard to sell if they go out of business. And you put a Super Wawa in there, there's no guarantee the other 3 aren't going to go out of business. Not to mention another 7-Eleven, 2 more gas stations in Lower Morrisville, a Wawa, 2 service stations in Yardley, and a gas station on Big Oak and Makefield Road in Lower Makefield. I believe, I'm up.
You can, if you want to wrap up your thoughts, that's fine.
I got a lot. I'll just let somebody else read it then.
Well, it's up to you.
I don't have that much. Can I?
I'll give you a minute or so.
Okay, I'll just continue to read it. I believe the changes in the proposed amendment will take care of the variances that Wawa requested for the gasoline canopy and the pumps, which I may be wrong. In my opinion, the 2 variance requests that are left will be taken care of with the new plan that Wawa will submit, so correct me if I'm wrong. In my interpretation of the proposed amendment, it would make it very convenient for Wawa and the other developer to submit the new plan with no variances needed. If Wawa does submit another application, my question as a taxpayer is, who is going to pay for the maintenance of the traffic lights that they are requesting to be installed? Who will pay for the brake retarder signs that will be needed from the truck traffic? Who will pay for the damages on West Trenton Avenue with the increased truck traffic? Who will pay for the needed for extra police for Falls and Morrisville to respond to the incidents that occur at a 24-hour operation? The board amended, the first amendment was in 1975 when you created it. It was amended in 2008. In April, May, and June of 2000, the zoning hearing board heard an application from Sunoco A Plus to put a convenience store with a gas station right next to the Getty on West Trenton Avenue. It was allowed for the convenience store, but rejected for gas. It was never built. This was a test of the 1,500 feet in the ordinance, and the board rejected it. In 2006, Wawa was in negotiations to build on a lot next to the township building. I attempted to get records for those hearings, but was told that the former township manager had thrown away many documents out and they were not available. But since there is no way there is Wawa next to this building, I can only assume that there was too many issues that needed to be addressed at that time in 2006. BJ's was also built prior to that 2008, so there was no other issues. So Chapter 9, 209 of the zoning code was amended in its entirety in December of 2008. Can anyone tell me if there are so many issues with the current ordinance, why it was not addressed then? Seems odd now that the Wawa wants to build on the Acme site in the ordinance. In Mr. Clark's word from the article of the Curry Times yesterday, needed to be corrected and clarified. That's all I have to say.
That's fine. Mr. Clark mentioned the fact that, you know, when a planning comes in, they might request variances, they might not request variances. It really, you know, yourself and Mr. D'Amico both referencing a plan, like I said, that's dead. So talking about...
It is dead. It is dead.
Now, if they resubmitted, as I said before, the same exact plan, they would still need variances.
Well, they'll probably submit a plan. I just have my opinion of what they're going to do. They'll probably submit a plan with two things, and it'll fit within there. And the variances that you're eliminating tonight, if you vote on it, would allow them to pretty much come in there uncontested.
They would have to abide by the zoning code, and they are property owners. They can come in, they can submit, they can ask for variances. They don't have to get them. One of the things I did want to reference, 2 things actually. You mentioned a traffic study. The traffic study isn't really something you do for a zoning hearing. Had they gone through zoning, made it through that first part of the process, then they would have probably been asked to do a traffic study.
They said that goes to planning, which I understand, but I just think that's
why it wasn't done.
I think that's a little wrong looking at it from our opinion, because we're trying to figure out what we're going to be living by. Because I do live there and I do travel through that intersection every day.
But if they don't make it through zoning, then they would have done the traffic study for nothing. So the trash enclosure, just to clarify that, the part of that we're changing. We already have something in our zoning that specifies how dumpsters especially have to be maintained, fences around them, stockade fences around them, shielded from view, et cetera. This ordinance had something different, which basically says that trash has to be maintained, like dumpsters have to be maintained inside the building, which makes no sense at all. You're a business owner, I'm sure you don't
Yeah,
want a
no.
dumpster inside your building.
Yep.
So that's what we're getting rid of.
Yep.
They still has to follow the enclosure like every other development would have to follow. So that's the clarification on that issue. Okay?
The only other, the clarification I would like to, is on the self-serve. If you can give me some kind of clarification
well-
on that, and me, if there's any other gas
Yeah, I mean,
stations
you know,
owners here.
your
I mean,
choice-
obviously, I'm Warsville Borough, so this has no
Right.
effect on me, but I would like to know what my competition is going to do down the road.
Well,
If that is what, if my interpretation is correct on that, all the other gas stations around me could go self-serve,
If
and
they
I would be
choose to,
stuck with
sure.
one full and one self. That's,
They
that's.
choose to. It's their- I mean,
they
it's their
can-
business.
They
If-
can with that ordinance.
And if they want to, sure,
Okay.
it's their option.
And one other, you had mentioned you had some conversations with the fire department about traffic in that area.
The
Have
light.
you also had any with the Pennsbury School Board? Because in the variance board, it had been mentioned, there's 45 to 50 Pennsbury school buses go through that intersection every day.
My daughter's one
So,
of them. So,
yes.
yep.
So with the increased truck traffic and everything else, I want to make sure that somebody's including that with the delay time, with that extra traffic and the safety hazards with those particular things being there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Dave Ricca? Dave Ricca? No? Okay. George Banyan? Is that right? Bannon? Bergen, okay. Mary Leshuk? Is that right? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name's Mary Leschuk. I live on 901 East Penn Valley Road. I actually live across the street from a Wawa. It really doesn't create much noise, honestly.
Can you speak in the microphone, miss? Sorry.
Sure. No, it really doesn't create a lot of noise. Honestly, I personally was a little hesitant when I first came into the neighborhood because I moved from across the, from Trentonish area. I get my packages sent to me. They're right on my front doorstep. Nobody takes them. There's no loitering. The most that you see is if there's a smoke break, someone coming out for a smoke break. Most people go in and out really fast. It's a Wawa, it's a business. Let's see, today, because of all the snow, there was a lot of truck drivers. But they kind of just grab their food and go, because once again, it's just a business. Most people don't loiter around my house or my area. And I'm actually surrounded by a trailer park. Lots of people, lots of hustle and bustle. It's not as bad as you would actually think, because once again, I sleep right next to it. My house, the front door to the front of the Wawa is probably within 200 feet. It's a very, very short distance. I really don't have much more to say than I understand people's concerns, and I understand traffic concerns too. But like I said, I have a lot of truck drivers that actually come through the area. You'd be surprised at how the Bristol Pike area, lots of people actually travel through that area.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of silly, I kind of think, that to assume that because a Wawa is going to pop up, that would be busy, like most businesses, that you would assume that crime is going to happen, or all of a sudden your community is going to deteriorate. I'm all for local businesses thriving, but if you support a local business, you go to a local business. I personally do that. If you don't support the Wawa, you don't go to the Wawa, and after a while you realize that the Wawa won't stay where it's not wanted. Beyond that, I guess don't have much more to say than, like I said, it's really not as, how should I put it?
Wait, I'm sorry, we only allow, on agenda items, we allow one person to speak one time. With this, we don't get into back and forth. So, Ms. Leschuk, go ahead and finish your comments.
No, I was simply stating that there's a lot of hustle and bustle. It's a very small Wawa, too. There's lots of truck drivers, like I said, but no, it does not have a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, there's a trailer park around it. I happen to be the only house on my road, and I'm literally right there all the time. So I don't really see what is the biggest problem with having a business have a chance. That's all.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sean Stillwell? You-
No, that's okay. I'd be happy for you to take my microphone.
Ms. Jones, go ahead.
Thank you. Madeline Jones, Falls Township, 40-year resident, 40-year plus resident of Penwood Crossing. Penn Valley Road is my backyard. I'm sorry, it hurts right now because of what I have gone through living across from Wawa. As much as, yes, their coffee is good. It has been so much. When my parents first moved in on Penn Valley Road, Penwood Crossing, one of the original, it was a wooded lot. A small Wawa came in. They expanded, I believe, twice. The second time, the noise was, I'm not sure what they're doing now, horrific. It depends on the location you live across from the store. The air conditioning units on top when they renovated once was outrageous. The refrigeration units from the trucks, the idling from the tractor trailers. When they expanded the last time, they actually put in painted lines, whatever you want to call parking spaces, to accommodate the tractor trailers. I contacted the Wawa. Are you a rest stop? Are you a truck stop? No, we are not. But the police department worked with me for quite a while. They got up a sign, please, be considerate of your neighbors, no idling. Because of the refrigeration units, the noise, the trash, the lighting at times. It was very, very, and again, a lot of my neighbors over the course of time felt in conversation the same way, but I was the only one practically, if I remember, that stood up and said, no, this is not right. You type in noise pollution, light pollution on your favorite search engine. Wawa, I used to be involved in decorating the store at Christmas and different things like that over the years. But it just really, really has a sore spot right now because of what I went through. And I know Bristol Township at the tech school, I don't know what those neighbors are going through, but what these neighbors are going to go through, let alone a gas station, around the clock is not good for the heart, the body, the mind, the soul. It's not good for the quality of life. Thank you.
Mrs. Stillwell.
Hi.
Use the microphone. Yeah, thank you.
First of all, I think I'd like to be the first one to say to Ms. Jones, obviously, you're a very heartfelt township resident.
Microphone.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to use a microphone. Mrs.
Still, no
Stillwell.
one's going to be able to hear you if you're not talking into the microphone.
Okay. But I just want to thank Ms. Jones because it's obvious that she is a very heartfelt member of this township. And it's very much appreciated by the rest of us who don't attend these meetings on a regular basis, that you apparently do. Again, my name's Sean Stillwell. I live at 129 Makefield Road, and my husband, who's already spoken tonight, is one of the owners of Plaza Shell, along with Glenn. I did sit through all of the zoning hearing board meetings, and I recognize from the look on your face, everyone's face, that regardless of what we say here, that it doesn't seem like anybody's going to pay attention, which is really, really disheartening. It's bothersome to me. We sat through these hearings. I work for a law firm. I recognize, illegalities. I understand that. But it seems awfully unusual that the code is going through a redo right when all this is happening, when a billion-dollar corporation is attempting to come into this township, where they failed on several other occasions, including, again, right next to this building, which the board didn't want.
Right.
So in that respect, another issue that I have is in sitting through those zoning hearing board meetings with the Wawa representative, with Buckingham Properties. The Wawa representative who, in his words, is a real estate engineer, and his job is opening Wawas. He couldn't answer a question of how many people come into a Wawa on any given day. That's very odd to me. It's very bizarre to me that someone could become before a board and not know the answer to that question, and when that's what he does for a living. Buckingham, Mr. Vertucci came before the zoning hearing board. He's one of the members of the LLC in Buckingham Properties. When asked, because there was an issue with whether or not he was a viable applicant for that application, which the zoning hearing board also turned down, he couldn't tell anybody who the rest of the members of his own LLC were. They are going to reapply. We know that they're going to reapply. That's a given. And apparently there is a process that's going to happen. But when I walked through my streets on Sunday in the bitter cold to let my neighbors know that this was happening, because it's hidden in a public notice, which I understand, again, is the law. I understand that. I'm thankful that we were aware that it was happening tonight. These people that come before you are not trustworthy. I have articles from other Wawa openings where Mr. Rydell, who was the Wawa representative, where he tells the township, the municipality, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, he tells them that there's not going to be truck traffic. They're not going to be able to make deliveries between 11 p.m. or 10 p.m., I think it was, and 7 a.m. And what happens? It was built. And what article do I see next? But the residents having to go back before the township after it's been built already, because Wawa is not complying with the conditions that that township put on them. They are not trustworthy. They are not someone that we need in our community. And it's very, very disheartening. The ordinances, I believe, are written for the health, welfare, safety of the residents, not the deep pockets of billion-dollar corporations. And I'm asking you tonight to reject these amendments, which to me are so very obviously being written for Wawa. You may say that no, they're not. And I will say that I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And it's disheartening. It's very disheartening. And I hope that you please think long and hard before you make a decision that can change the makeup of a community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Tarity?
All of the comments have been said by my
Okay.
neighbors, so I won't waste your time.
All right.
I just have one question, though.
Okay.
Has Wawa considered any other parcels of land within Falls Township, like Tyburn Road, where that?
Sterling, we have no idea. It's not, you know, they're.
I don't think the space that they've asked for has an accommodating parking spaces for what's been proposed there.
Then they'll have to submit a plan that has them.
Okay. But you know of nothing?
I don't know. It's not.
Thank
It's
you.
not our business to know what other sites they've looked at.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tarity.
Hello, Jeff Tarity, Falls Township resident all my life. I may not live across the street from a Wawa, or I'm probably within 2 miles of this proposed Wawa, and I am in favor of new business and employing people and whatnot versus an abandoned building. So, I mean, I'm for it.
Okay.
That's about it.
All right. Thank you. Mason Joseph Hobie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to put special thanks for the Falls Township Force. They cleaned the snow today from the street.
Okay.
Thank you for them.
Sure.
My name is Mason Joseph Hobby. I'm a Falls Township resident. And I want to just see the anger. I don't have an agenda or read anything from in front of me. But I want to just address one thing or a couple of things. People here came out with anger, and they would like to see some justice. They don't want somebody come from the back door to put their rules on the table and run the township I'm like Muppet. We're human beings. We pay taxes here. We like things to raise our kids. We're not against Wawa, as anybody said. We're against the traffic, the nightmare gonna be created by that business, because that business is created as a gas station. A nightmare, we seen it on Oxford Valley Road. We seen it by the tech school when they put the Wawa. If you go rush hours, you'll avoid that. A friend of mine, he sold his house before the Wawa expansion on Oxford Valley Road. The guy who bought it from him put it on the market for $25,000 less. Depreciation of the value of the property in there. We pay taxes in there. We like you to look very considerate, to be legend, because we put the trust in your hand. Like Mandela Nelson, he said no to the wrong, and he was a legend, and he lived by his principle. And when he died, people from across the world, they salute his principles. You guys with principles, we like to be very strongly. Don't take anybody from $1 million pay a company to come to our town to ruin our life. We have kids. We don't want to see flying bullets in the street. So we're going to come after everybody who allowed them to do that. We love you all what you do, and we hope justice here, and we hope these things don't be on the table. Plus, when you put 1,500 feet in a gas station to 500 feet, here people, when they need gas, they drive a car. It's not a walking distance. They need to go from store to store. It's like you're running a house. I want to build another kitchen. It's unacceptable. It don't fit the brains. Somebody he like to change the rules for their desire or tailor. Let's be strong. Let's say no to the wrong thing. Be a legend. We put the trust in your hand. We have our kids to raise. I brought my kids with me here to see them. Those are our generations. We have to lead them to the right way, not the wrong way. In the 80s, when they changed the laws from 500 feet to 1,500 feet, they look closer to our kids. They look the right. In Philadelphia, they have gas stations side by side. You go down there, you see boarded up. Why? Because people drive a car to fill gas. They can make a choice. Between this gas station and gas station, they don't need a walking distance to go from gas station to the other. 1,500 feet, I think it's safe, it's better. Please keep it that way, and we put the trust in your hand. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Robert Sherry.
Hello, I'm Robert Sherry. I didn't really come with prepared remarks, but I made some notes as I was listening. So, you introduced this topic as Wawa, even though it's really about the change you want to make in the zoning board. I think it's interesting because I can appreciate some of the changes that you're talking about, changing something from a gas station to a service station, but if that was probably what you were changing, that wouldn't be the issue. I do see, though, that changing the setbacks are not onerous on anyone who wanted to apply today. And I think it's in the best interest of our community to keep them. Let's see. I think that by changing it, what you're really doing is you're lowering the bar for the Wawas. That's what's happening. I mean, you could tell me if you change gas station, that doesn't make a difference to Wawa. Changing the setback is going to lower the bar. It's going to make it easier for them.
When you say setback, are you referring to?
That's the 50 feet, the 10 feet, the 1,500 feet,
well,
all of those things.
That's one of the things Mr. Clark pointed out. We have to change that because the state law supersedes ours.
Well, then I disagree. Okay, so I'm not an attorney.
In line with the state laws. In other words,
I'm not an attorney.
The state's laws are above ours, like the federal governments are above the state. So right now, our law. Put it this way.
I'm not an attorney, but you could leave it alone and let them go to court and fight that.
And they're going to win.
Well, let them win.
But here's the thing.
Let's make the bar higher.
Well,
let me finish my points.
But then we're spending, and I'll let you finish. I'll give you some extra time.
Okay.
But if we're taking that to court and fighting, you and I are paying the bill for the attorneys.
Well, no, it's just another thing that the zoning board will have in their quiver as they discuss it. And they can always make.
I can't. I'm just.
So if you're telling,
I can't.
Maybe
allow,
I'm missing something. Are you saying we're breaking the law right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
our ordinance is preempted by state law.
Right.
So there's no home rule in Pennsylvania?
No. No one in Philadelphia has some home rule with some issues, but that's not the issue here.
And especially not on an issue like this.
Yeah,
Where
it's-
the state has preempted the field.
Right. It would be like
So then-
us passing a law that, you know,
So
we
then,
should.
so if it's preempted, and I'm not an attorney, does it matter what ours says? Leave it alone. If it doesn't matter.
If we're aware of it.
But why keep it on the books if it doesn't make sense?
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
But this is bad timing. Wait 5 years.
This wasn't a variance that Wawa needed anyway.
Yeah,
Well-
it wasn't anyway. It doesn't apply to.
So I'm talking about the setbacks as well. Are the setbacks in there?
Yeah, but it doesn't, they, even
But
with
they
their
make
old
it
plan.
dangerous. You may have the
Even
pumps-
with their old plan, they weren't.
I'm not talking about just Wawa. I'm talking about the change in the 1,500 feet for a lot
Okay,
of
well,
reasons.
that's fine. That's a different one. That's why I was asking what you meant by setback, which.
But I'm talking about all the changes that are not cursory changes, like change it from gas station.
Okay.
Tell me that you don't need a computer in the pump because the pumps have advanced, I understand.
Right.
All the other things do affect our safety. So whether or not the pump is 10 feet from the street, somebody comes off the street in a snowstorm and hits it, they're less likely to hit it if it's 50 feet versus 10 feet.
I agree with you,
Okay.
and that's the state law that.
So I don't know that, so then, if that's the state law.
Yes.
Okay, it's very difficult, I'm not an attorney of whether you should leave it or not, then why do you have to have it at all if the state law supersedes?
That's why we're taking it out.
Okay, it was changed in here to 500.
No, that's
In what I
No,
said.
that's, you're talking something different.
issue.
Yeah, Mr. Yeah.
Oh, then don't change the 1,500 to 5. I'm looking
Oh,
at
yeah.
Exhibit A. Exhibit A has numbers going down, and I'm opposing the numbers going down.
Right, there's a state issue, that's the 10-foot from the property line.
Right.
Then there's the 1,500 to 500, which is Falls Township. We have full control
So
of
I'm
that.
saying, don't change that. I'm saying
that
any
one, the second
number that you, in your Exhibit A, you have numbers that you're lowering to make it easier for Wawa or for any other gas station. That, of course, that's the only one we've had. And it makes it more difficult it makes it less safe for my money, okay?
Penn Valley and New Falls Road, are you familiar with that intersection? Penn Valley and New Falls
by the
Road.
high school.
No.
Oh, there was 3 gas stations.
Well,
right
that's
o-
fine.
There's 2 now.
But you're
There's 2 to
saying,
1.
let's, and you know what? If you would have asked me, I know where over near the high school is.
Yeah.
I would think that that introduces danger to our kids in that area. So the fact that there's less now, there's one less, is in my mind safer, which I'm going to come to in a minute.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
The other point on the traffic, because we are talking about Wawa, even though that's not meant to be just about Wawa.
Right.
But so just so you know, in your Exhibit A, you've got all these numbers where you're lowering them. I don't see that they're onerous, and I don't see that they need to be changed. So if they're with it, if you're keeping a number, then it's not being, my interpretation of what you just said, it's not being superseded by the state. Leave the numbers where they are at. Okay, so don't lower them.
Okay.
That's my basic position on that.
Okay.
On the point of the traffic, you're talking about potentially cars, and you said some of this is PennDOT, so but cars and trucks are going to be coming off of to this superstation 24 hours a day off of Route 1 South. And what's going to happen is there's no route entrance back from the Route 13 as you tried to go down onto Route 1 South. So they're going to have to go down West Trenton, past the post office, past the Commons apartments, past the residential section there to get on Route 1. I don't know how far that is, 2 miles, 3 miles? We don't need tractor trailers 24 hours a day on a street where kids commute. There's no sidewalks in some areas along that pathway. And I think it's just making it more dangerous for the community. So there's we're not talking about an easy on or easy off. It would be a little bit different situation. I'm glad your body language says you at least acknowledge that.
I understand, but yeah.
And I want to just comment that I was very surprised when I looked at the handout tonight, that on the first page, it talks about, whereas the Board of Supervisors has determined, and I'm going to kind of leave the middle piece, it should be for the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of Falls Township. So I would be very interested to hear, since somebody mentioned a newspaper article that was the wrong facts, since this seems to be for the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of Falls Township, not because it's superseded by a law of the state, not because I'd like to understand that piece. And maybe you could have an interview and give your side of this and put it on the newspaper where people can read it, if that's really the case. Because it's not obvious to me from what I've heard from the township supervisors or any of the members of how this is improving our community. And maybe if somebody wants to argue it's not changing it, but I haven't heard how it's improving it. So, thank you for the time.
Okay. Joel Rosenberg?
Mr. Zazzle, go first before me.
Sure.
My name is Darrell Zazzle, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm an attorney here representing one of your township owners, Village Mall, Inc., 833 West Trenton Avenue here in Falls Township. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, when my client said to me he heard something about changing zoning here in the township, I did what we lawyers do. And I said, I'll go to the law library and let me look at this proposed ordinance of Falls Township so I can study it. And I went to the law library pursuant to the municipality's planning code, and lo and behold, there is no ordinance there for me to examine on behalf of my client. I'd like to know how it is that the law library does not have a copy of this proposed ordinance so that I as an attorney and Mr. Rosenberg as an attorney and even members of the public can review it. If I'm mistaken and the county commissioners have allowed you to have a local Levittown library house the ordinance, you can correct me. The municipality's planning code is clear. When I couldn't go to the law library, I figured to myself, well, I'm here in Doylestown on legal business. Let me go over to the Bucks County Planning Commission and let me ascertain from the Bucks County Planning Commission what their recommendations are on this ordinance. Because again, the municipality's planning code, as I understand it, I can stand corrected if I'm incorrect, is very clear. The Bucks County Planning Commission needs to receive a copy of your proposed zoning ordinance. You have no capability to be voting on any ordinance because the Bucks County Planning Commission has not weighed in and looked at your ordinance, unless I'm mistaken, and you have it there, and it'll be part of the record as to what the Bucks County Planning Commission has said regarding your proposal. They may have something to say about gas stations every 500 feet in Falls Township. And then I said to myself, well, they don't have it because I checked with them. Let me at least go to that much maligned newspaper, the Bucks County Courier-Times, because the advertisement was in that newspaper. And the advertisement did not contain a full copy of the text of this ordinance, which I need in order to advise my client as to the legal ramifications of what you're doing. And I didn't go there because I was not driving down to their building. I've been already to 2 places. I don't believe that you have provided a copy of the ordinance to that newspaper either, and that's another violation of the municipality's planning code. So then I said, you know what, let me come right here to Falls Township and let me see what the Falls Township Planning Commission has said about this ordinance. Now, it may be that I am again incorrect, and I apologize if I am, but the law is very clear, the state law, and that says that if your planning commission here in Falls Township did not draft that ordinance, then you must have it sent to them first, for them to have 30 days to examine that ordinance, proposed ordinance, and come back to you and tell you what their feeling is about it. They might say, you know what, we don't want gas stations every 500 feet in Falls Township. I think that you have not followed appropriate procedures start to finish on this ordinance. Now, I know as an attorney who does this work that this has nothing to do with Wawa, even though you began by saying this has everything to do with Wawa. My client says to me, how is it that the ordinance was not advertised and they came out of an executive session, and after the executive session, one of the members said, I'm in favor of an ordinance for these gas stations. And lo and behold, an ordinance is completely prepared. And you have discussed among yourselves tonight. You've used language like, we all said, let's make changes. You've used language like, we've discussed with the board. My client wants to know, and I'm sure these people want to know, where did those discussions take place? Your discussions, your deliberations need to be done in public session, not to have a meeting, an executive session, and your solicitor comes out and says, we discussed litigation and personnel. Now, I will tell you that that is also not an acceptable statement to come out of an executive session. The case law is very clear. You can't just say, we talked about litigation and that's sufficient. You are obligated to provide these residents of yours and my client who owns property in this township exactly the nature in general of what you discussed, not litigation, some specific matter to give these people some confidence level that you didn't sit in the back room and come up with some ordinance about gas stations and bring it out here and vote on it when it was never on your agenda before that. I suggest to you that you are not in a position this evening to be taking any action on this ordinance. My client wants me to, under the open records law, get copies of all the interchanges between you and Wawa and their attorney and your solicitor and your engineer, so that my client can ascertain, is it in fact the case that this is a coincidence, that Wawa needed a 600-foot setback, a 600-foot distance, and you're giving them 500 feet. It's all just a coincidence. I take your word for it. That's what you said. My client wants to know, and I need the time in order to find that out. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the panel, my buzzer is up, and I've said what I need to say to you. I do suggest to you, unless I am wrong, it can be corrected, which I will stand corrected, that this matter is not appropriately before this board this evening.
Mr. Clark?
Can I only address the most offensive things that Mr. Zaslow said?
Please
There's
do.
been no violation of the Sunshine Act. You're not entitled to communications between me and my clients, and you should know that, Mr. Zaslow. And to infer to these people behind you as you're trying to whip them up into a frenzy that you're entitled to things that I discuss with my clients individually is wrong. And there is no violation of the Sunshine Act. If I discuss potential changes to this ordinance with any of them, 2 of them at a time, 1 of them at a time, that is not a violation of the Sunshine Act, and you should know that.
I'll respond to that, and I'll cite case law.
No, Mr. Zaslow, you've had enough time. Mr. Clark?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Mr.
Clark?
Chairman, you gave every member of this public extra time.
And you're not even a resident, Mr.
My
Zaslow.
client
This is public comment. This is an oral argument. You're not even a resident.
Your solicitor has
Zaslow?
indicated.
Mr. Zaslow?
Yes.
You made a lot of points. Mr. Clark, how long have you done municipal law?
About 18, 19 years.
Okay, thank you. Have we
I'm gonna
violated,
cite a case for the
violated the municipal planning code?
No, we have not.
Thank you. Mr. Zaslow, take a seat.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Zaslow.
I will do so.
Take a
May I
seat.
close my books?
Go ahead.
And I'll sit down. I would like to know
And close
if
your
you had an
mouth, too.
obligation to notify these various
We'll take a break.
commissions.
Okay, we'll call our meeting back to order at 8:50. I want to apologize for losing my temper a little earlier. I don't like being accused of being a criminal, which has happened a couple times this evening. So, excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Mr. Excuse me.
There was no such allegation made.
Darryl, come
Excuse
on.
me.
Everyone else,
Come on.
Mr. Zaslow?
and him and me, were not
Mr.
allowed.
Zaslow, please sit down.
I received your message the last time.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
you want to go on, or?
Mr. Rosenberg was originally called. He allowed Mr.
Excuse me,
Zaslow.
can I just add that I'm hearing the concerns regarding the safety, and I'd like to amend the ordinance back to 1,500 feet.
Okay. So leave it as is.
This is within the township.
Okay. Mr. Clark, so 1,500 feet within the township, would that be, is that a substantial change, or is that not a substantial change?
Since the room is filled with lawyers, and since this has already been an extremely litigious matter with the hearings in front of the zoning hearing board, I would recommend that if you're going to amend the ordinance, that to be a minimum of 1,500 feet between service stations within the limits of Falls Township, that you re-advertise the ordinance as presented, so anyone else who may have had an interest at that distance would have the opportunity to appear and be heard.
Okay. All right.
So what we would need is a motion to amend, well, really, you'd be directing us to amend the ordinance, but a motion to amend the ordinance and then a motion to re-advertise the ordinance.
2 separate motions.
You should do them, you can do them separately.
Okay. All right. We still have quite a few people on the sign-in sheet that did sign up to speak and came this evening. I don't know if we want to continue with that. I mean, obviously, they've heard.
So if we're going to re-advertise, we'll have another opportunity to hear them, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, do we have to take a vote on the,
Well, that's what we're deciding. If we want to continue with, I think we've already kind of, Mr. Rocker's already made his point. I'm assuming other people are in support of it. I have no problem with it.
I appreciate you making a motion to amend, and I'll second it.
Okay. Motion to amend the proposed ordinance change to 1,500 feet within Falls Township borders. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we need a motion to re-advertise.
I would.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make that a motion to re-advertise.
okay.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Again, going back to my previous question, if,
Yeah, I think after re-advertise, we should have the opportunity to hear from him.
okay. We'll let Mr. Rosenberg, since he was called earlier, he's standing at the microphone, we'll let him speak, and he'll be our final speaker on this issue.
Thank you. For the benefit of everybody who's come out tonight, and I appreciate the effort everybody made on this cold night, that amendment that was just voted on is a distinction without a difference.
Excuse me, you have to use the mic, you have to use microphone.
It's meaningless, and you know that, and I know that, because the only gas station within 1,500 feet is the gas station that happens to be in the borough of Morrisville.
Sir,
Now,
I heard
can I
many
finish?
residents
Can I
speak
finish?
to the dangers of putting the gas station so close throughout the rest of the township. Numerous speakers tonight stated that.
Mr.
We're
Galloway,
addressing their concerns.
Can I finish?
You may.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have 5 minutes. That distinction that you've just made doesn't change the ability of Wawa to open a gas station at this location, which these people have come out tonight to tell you that they don't want. Now, I want to address some of the things that you spoke about, Mr. Harvey. First, you trashed the Courier-Times because of the article. It's my understanding you refused to speak to the reporter when she contacted you about this.
I didn't refuse to speak.
I understand that the board referred her to the solicitor.
Yes.
Okay. So you had an opportunity. You could call her up at any time and tell her what you told this group tonight, but you didn't do that. You just wanted to trash the newspaper because they only had one side of the story, the side that people would speak to them. And I think what it does is it takes things out of context. For example, you said that the current zoning code was illegal. Is the part about the 1,500 feet illegal? It's not, because apparently the board just voted to make 1,500 feet.
I didn't say that part was illegal.
You didn't clarify it.
Yes, I did, actually.
Can I have a raise of hands? Anybody in this room thought 1,500 feet was
You can talk into the microphone, sir.
Okay. Okay, so you weren't exactly clear, because we all know what we're here for. Okay, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and swims like a duck, it's a duck. This is the Wawa amendment. Let's get that straight. Okay, don't try to mislead these people that this is something else. I was born and raised in this township. My father's going to be 92 years old next month. He has lived here for about 60 years, and he lives on Stevens Road. My wife and mother-in-law here, they're Falls Township residents too. We're all from Falls Township. This particular area, I would venture to say there's no one in this room that knows this area more intimately than I do. I grew up on Stevens Road. I sold Trentonians on the islands between those traffic lights. I worked at the Grand Union where the Planet Fitness is now. I worked at restaurants all over there. I rode my bicycle all over that area day in and day out, and I drive West Trenton Avenue every single day. There's a reason why we haven't had a gas station in this township in 10 years. We don't need one. And if this gas station goes into place, not only is it going to affect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents, it's going to put 3 other gas stations out of business and probably 2 7-Elevens. So if you're concerned about blight, you're going to have to be concerned about all the businesses that have been here 40, 50, and 60 years that are going to go out of business. These are not only local businesses, but these are community caretakers. These are people who live and are invested in the community, not some foreign billion-dollar corporation who doesn't care about what happens. And this is really important. Now, Mr. Berkeley, and I would ask this board to let Mr. Berkeley speak after me. He drove up from Cherry Hill tonight to tell you about what happened in his neighborhood after Wawa made all the promises that I had. And I think that's really important. He came a long way. I would ask that you give him 5 minutes when I'm done. But I think it's disingenuous to suggest that anything that's going on here today doesn't have anything to do directly with Wawa, and that this change, this epiphany that occurred in that back room, that we're going to leave it at 1,500 feet makes a difference, because it doesn't. We all also know that this particular area is really a strange area, because on the other side of the cell station, which is in Morrisville Borough, is Falls Township. There's like a little island that comes out in this Morrisville Borough. So we're going to have this distinction that we have 1,500 feet, as though there's a wall between Morrisville and Falls Township that would make it any difference than any other gas station within the township. If you look at the municipal planning code, at the state level, It talks about the coordination between adjoining counties and how they should talk to each other about these things. So you're going to tell me that the reason why we're going to make this distinction tonight about Morrisville Borough and Falls Township is because they don't play nice and they don't have the same rules we have? That's what we're basing this on? Because Morrisville only has a 500 feet distinction and we don't want to give them the benefit of that advantage? This is the kind of political game playing that's going on in this township at the expense of the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. My father's neighborhood that he's lived there for 60 years. Mr. D'Amico has a beautiful home across the street. That's not right. When you got elected to office, there was a public trust that was inured to you. We trust you to do what's best for us, not some foreign corporation. And to sit here and play these games all night long about, oh, this isn't a Wawa amendment, or they can do anything. You know as well as I know, sir, that the variances that they need once you wipe out this 1,500 feet requirement are not going to stop them from coming in there. They're dimensional variances and they're liberally granted. That's disingenuous to suggest to these people who don't know any better that that somehow is going to stop them. This zoning plan that's been in effect since 1975 has served this community well. The municipal code requires that it be reviewed every 10 years. So presumably in 1985, 1995, and 2005, this code has been reviewed. And not one of those times did anybody think that this was a problem with this 1,500 feet between Morrisville and Falls Township. It is only by mere coincidence that somebody had an epiphany at the same time that Wawa wants to put this gas station in there that we got to change this code. I imagine one of you were on the beach last year and you said, you know, that 1,500 feet requirement, boy, that's really getting me in the side. We got to do something about that because none of the gas stations are coming to Falls Township anymore. And that's what we need in Falls Township. We need a lot more gas stations. I drove down West Trenton Avenue this morning like I drive every single day on my way to work. If you drove down West Trenton Avenue, and I have the pictures on my iPhone if you want to see them, at 10:30 this morning, the road was completely snow-covered. Now, one can only imagine the traffic on that roadway when cars are coming out of Wawa after getting gas in the morning. And there was actually a car on the side of the road as well.
Okay. Thank you,
I just want to say one last thing. The formation of a comprehensive plan requires the wisdom of community leaders that can see well past the instant gratification of the next election and think about the next generation of families that will live in our community. Young families just starting out and the families that will come in the future as older residents like my father move out. Every day we enjoy the benefits of great thinkers who have long since passed on our way over bridges, down highways, things that were conceived of 50 and 60 or 70 years ago. Without those people, without the wisdom of those leaders looking at what's going to happen in the future, we wouldn't enjoy the transportation systems, the bridges, and the roadways that we have today. This amendment is not only short-sighted, but poorly thought through. And it's disingenuous to suggest to anybody in this audience, it's an insult to their intelligence, to suggest that this has anything other to do with Wawa trying to move into that location.
Thank you.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey, if I could very briefly, I'll get out my dictionary later. I'm not that smart to know what epiphany means, but the great line about the epiphany on the beach, I'm sure everyone heard earlier. We were monitoring the Wawa hearings. The board had us go to several of the hearings. This issue regarding the 1,500 feet was discussed at length during the Wawa hearings, so I'm not sure what epiphanies any of you may have had on the beach last summer, but this is something that we were aware of while the hearings were going on. It's something that we took a look at. It wasn't done in a back room. It wasn't done in a violation of the Sunshine Act. It was done along with the comprehensive review of the code that we're doing right now. And if anyone, again, has indicated they don't believe us that we're doing a comprehensive review of the code, we'll be happy to show them the invoices that my office has submitted for the last year, the invoices that Jim Sullivan's office has submitted for the last year. We'll be happy to give them copies of some of the copies of the memos that have gone back and forth between the board and our office and the board and the zoning hearing officer. So the idea that this just came up because someone from Wawa contacted us is just blatantly false.
Okay, I'd like the memo that talks about why you need to reduce the distance from 1,500 feet to 500 feet.
And I'd like to see
Could we
the memo
that?
where the board
Okay,
authorized you to go to a zoning hearing.
Yes.
Show us where the board voted. to
We're
say
moving
you-
on.
They
Next
don't have
agenda
to do
item.
that. And they don't have to do that, Darrell. So again, you're
All right,
trying
Mr.
to
Clark.
whip the public up
Clark,
into something.
Mr. Clark. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Item number 4 is discuss proposal from S&S Wildlife for geese management, Falls
Mr.
Township
Berkeley
Community
just
Park.
talked for 5 minutes. He did come from Cherry Hill today. I didn't-
We,
he made a long
we
day.
are, no. Excuse me. What happens at a Wawa in Cherry Hill really has no bearing, because I'm certain we could find people we already have somebody who's talking about a Wawa on Penn Valley Road. We have other people who can talk about Wawas anywhere.
We want to hear.
We can hear from anybody, anytime. With all due respect to our friend from Cherry Hill, we've heard quite a bit about this issue. Our job is not to determine who's a good business owner and who's not a good business owner. There are wonderful business owners in Falls Township. There are horrible business owners in Falls Township. That is not our job to decide who's a good business owner and who's not. We can't make that judgment. We can't come in and say, well, we're not going to grant you this approval because we don't think you're going to be a good business owner. We can't do that. We have no idea of that. That's not our job. Our job is to look at the property rights of people that come in, property rights everybody in this room has if you own a property. The people that have come in, excuse me, the people that have come here, to buy property like the developers are trying to do, or have, I don't even know if they have it or if it's under agreement or what it is. They have rights with that property. They have to meet our guidelines, they have to meet our code, they have to meet our zoning. They have to meet it. If they don't, they go to the zoning board, like they did before. If they grant them the zoning variances, fine. If this board wanted to see the project go through, it had multiple opportunities to do that all throughout the fall. All throughout the fall, we could have passed any of these ordinances ahead of time if we wanted to, if we liked the project. Fact of the matter was that we, just like the project that was going to go next door here several years ago with the Wawa, didn't like all the variances they were looking at with signage and with everything else. We had concerns. We still have concerns about traffic. Fact of the matter is that the changes we're making in this are changes we have thought a lot about. With the issue with 1,500 feet within Falls Township is simply to protect Falls Township property and business owners. In other words, if you bought a property in Falls Township and wanted to do something, maybe because you just happen to be close to another township border, somebody does something in that township, and now all of a sudden you can't do it here. How is that fair? We have no control. Neither does that township resident in Falls have any control of what happens in Marsville or Lower Makefield or Bristol Township or Middletown. They have no control over it. So if someone does something there, and because our ordinance is written a certain way, now you can't do something on your property that you own here in Falls Township.
You can get a variance.
That,
You can get a variance.
yes,
That's right.
that is the idea behind it. That was the whole purpose of it.
Mr. Chairman, when they built the Wawa behind my house, they devalued my property by $35,000.
Well,
okay, that's what my municipal government did to me.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and then I have to live with the noise, the lights, the trucks, the gas, 80,000 gallons of gasoline under the ground, 100 feet from my house.
And all these arguments, the ones that have made since the beginning of this, was at some point, an hour and a half ago, all of them are good arguments to make when there's actually a plan in front of us, which there's not.
Has anybody
We don't
ever
have
come
one.
and said that they have a problem building a gas station?
We don't have one.
Because there's a gas station that's on the other
I
side of the
have,
property line?
no, I have not.
You're curing an
Excuse me,
ailment that
excuse
doesn't
me.
exist.
I have had absolutely no contact with anybody from Wawa. I don't know if anybody else has either. They never got past the first hurdle. None of us even went to the zoning board meetings because we wanted to make clear that we had nothing to, you want to one of them?
Yeah.
Okay. We sent our solicitor to monitor and see what the situation was. Right? If there is a proposal before us at some point, we have to wait and see what they propose. We can't pass judgment on them before we even see what they're doing. We don't know.
Mr.
I
Harvey.
appreciate the concern people have about traffic and about noise, about lights. Those are all excellent concerns that will come up if there is ever a proposal before us.
Mr. Harvey, I agree with you, and I think there's still a lot of business to do tonight.
Yes.
I'm happy that we are re-advertising, and we'll have the opportunity to hear from anyone who wants to come and speak.
Okay. Mr. Shadle is here. Thank you very much, Mr. Shadle. Appreciate, we've had people from a far distance, but nobody's come further than you have to come here this evening. And so we appreciate your patience this evening. You were originally supposed to go before this discussion, but we wanted to kind of, hear from our residents since so many of them came out. At our last meeting, the township heard from Mr. Shadle, SNS Wildlife, about efforts to control the goose population at Falls Township Community Park. We asked Mr. Shadle to put together a proposal for us.
Really? Bring it. Bring it, Kevin. Come on. You know better than that. Go out, whip them up in the audience.
Let's take, there's a lot of people getting up and leaving. Let's take just a real short recess. Okay, we're going to call our meeting back to order. We have quite a few people here to, as you could tell, discuss the previous agenda item, and as they were leaving, it was making a lot of noise, and wanted to make sure people could hear the presentation that was going to come next. As I said, at the last meeting, we had Mr. Shadle from SNS Wildlife here, and we went ahead with the egg addling program that we've used in the past. But we did ask him to put together sort of a bigger, more expanded program for us to consider, which he did, and the board members have that. And we wanted to discuss tonight, let him first off kind of talk about his ideas, and then the board can ask some questions, and we can have some discussion, take some action. So, Mr. Shadle, thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me here tonight and the ability to provide this additional information. On the front page, I have the letter to Brian. I do state in there it's a 12-month goose management program. It's 10-month. We're talking March to December, so that is a typo. I apologize. This plan is comprehensive in terms of it's a 12 or 10-month program, March to December, and it will incorporate a number of different methods and programs to make geese unwanted at the site. Okay, most of this is non-lethal activity. There is a small percentage or portion of this that we're requesting to use lethal activity as well to manage these geese. That may not be necessary. It may be necessary. It's one of those tools that you need to have on the table, if at all possible, that if you need it, you can use it. On page 2, there is a list of 7 items. These are not in any particular order. One doesn't have precedence over others, though one is an important aspect in just about every plan. So this would involve activity on the ground as well as on the water, and this would be all bodies of water, the big lake, the marshes, and the creeks. Noise. The use of noise, that's bird bangers and bird screamers. Those are temporary noise makers. One is launched into the air, makes a boom. The other one is launched across water, across ground, and it makes just a bad noise. And you see I have specified parameters. These are not things that we would want to use without making folks aware in the park that these might get used. We don't want folks dropping to the ground wondering what's going on. So that'd be something that either through signage or maybe at specified times when activity's low, whatever. But again, something that is very useful. None of these things in themselves are going to solve this problem. They all have to be used together. It's a toolbox with tools in it. Like any of us has got a toolbox. If you're missing the hammer when you need the hammer or missing the pliers, you just can't get the job done. Lasers are used at night. These are not things that blow something up. They're not incendiaries, but Canada geese, like some other birds, but Canada geese in particular, are very troubled by lasers. Nobody knows why. There hasn't been a geese that's told us yet. But geese respond violently to lasers. And this isn't a laser shot in the eye. It doesn't even have to hit them. They see the beam in some manner, and it moves geese. So that's something that we would use or want to be able to use. These are shot along the ground, across the water. They're not shot into the air. There's issues with airport traffic and all kinds of things that can happen with lasers. They're not shined where they can't be shined. The use of lights as well. Those are spotlights. Again, those are directional,
And with any site that we use this type of stuff, we understand where homes are, where streets are, so that this stuff is not shined across those areas. Effigies, there's different types of effigies. An effigy is either a 3D mock-up, it's a rubber device, it's a balloon, it looks like a coyote, looks like a dead goose, it may be a silhouette type thing. These are used a little bit in some of our programs, and they're very specific to a season. So they have some here at the township, you guys have some. Most of the time, they're not of much account, but at very specific seasons. So there's something that we would want to use on occasion, or we may use on occasion. Number 3 is a limited take. Again, this is the permit to be able to take a certain specified number of geese by lethal control. This is permit is given via the Pennsylvania Game Commission and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They determine what that number is for the year. It might be 5, it might be 25, it might be 10. It's whatever they specify. So that's the rule within what we work with. So watercraft is people in boats, okay? And there's no gas motors allowed here. We would use electric motors where we move geese off the water. So historically, the geese get moved off the ground here only to go to the water, and then water safety. There's nobody moving them off the water. So we move them off the water, and then we move them off the land, and we move them off the water, and you bother geese enough, they decide that this isn't a good place to be. So ultimately, the goal is with this is to make these geese feel very uncomfortable to the point where instinctually they recognize, whatever that is, that if they don't leave, they're dead. Okay? That's the goal. Not that we're going to make them all dead, but that's the goal. If I trouble you enough as a neighbor and you think you're going to die, then you're probably going to move. And that's the different with these geese. It's
neighbor.
What's that?
I'm glad I'm not your neighbor.
Right, exactly. So you understand the point. Just talking in hyperbole here, but that's what goose management is. And with a site like this, if you don't do it, some extent of management every month, then we're just going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing, is having lots of geese and lots of poop. So,
okay. As it's presented, the program involving day and nighttime activities really kind of being left up to the parameters set up by SNS. From March through December, the program as presented to us is $27,400. That would be in addition to the money we expended last
that's correct.
Meeting for the egg addling. Okay. Right. I'm going to let board members ask some questions. Then we'll go to public comment and we'll have some discussion. Mr. Galloway.
I'll save my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Brasky.
Can you just touch on why the rate is different between nighttime and daytime? It seems to be more expensive at night.
It is, because we're working time and a half when we do this work. We work 50 to 60 hours a week most months of the year, and we're working overtime hours and nighttime hours, so we charge more for it.
So I have this thing.
Mr. Dents?
Most of these things are going to be taking place during the day when the park is open.
No.
No?
No, sir.
What? It said 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. What are your hours? Daytime activity?
Well, we have nighttime activity too. We estimated for this job as a worst case scenario. So the price I gave you is worst case scenario, okay? Just a not to exceed. Okay. 205 day hours and 85 night hours. So you get more results quicker at night than you do at day, but you must do both.
You said 205 day hours and 85 night.
Correct.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot more during the day than you are at night.
That's correct, but you had said that we weren't doing any at night. I may have misunderstood
no.
you.
My concern is if you're doing this during the day when the park is open, you're going to be annoying geese. And you even said that some of them get violent when they get agitated. And like I said last week, I was chased by me and my dog were chased by some of these geese. So my concern is if you're getting these geese excited and when there's kids and people in the park, are they going to start harassing people?
No, sir, no. Geese don't really get, I mean, the geese that may have turned on you and got violent.
Get violent, we got out of there before they had a chance.
Right.
He didn't catch them.
There's a lot of looks with geese that just like anything else or just like any of us, you know, we give a look or we give body action that might indicate that if you don't leave, I'm going to beat you up. Well, geese do that, but they don't beat people up for the most part. Geese that get aggressive is a goose sitting on a nest and a gander that's with her. And that doesn't always happen either. So having been involved in the business for 21 years, there is no goose that bothers me. And there's no goose that bothers my guys because we understand the body language and we're just a bigger dog than they are. It's the best way I can explain it. So we don't have problems with people
being harassed by the
being
geese.
harassed by geese.
Because
No.
you're harassing them.
Right.
Now also on the watercraft on the lake, like is that going to be taking place during the day when people are fishing, or we have a lot of paddle boarding that goes on in the lake and kayaking and so forth?
We certainly would be understanding of that. We don't want to be messing up folks' recreational time. But there's ways to get around that. We have a group of geese on the water that we want to move off. We can move that off without really getting in somebody's way.
When we saw this proposal originally, we saw effigies. We had this horrible thought that you were going to be nailing dead geese up in our park. I think Mr. Gray told you that. We had to get some clarification on what was meant by effigies.
Right.
Now,
He
is that
didn't tell me
something-
all that, but he asked me what it was.
That was our concern. You know, when I saw effigies, I called Mr. Harmon and said, he's not putting dead geese on display, is he? And
Yeah, no geese on pikes, nothing like that.
Okay.
No.
this is just a kind of like what we
They're
have now,
decoys, for
coyotes.
lack of a better term. I did a poor job explaining it, but it's decoys.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have right now.
Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, what do you think the likelihood is that this will work?
Well, I think the likelihood is 100% that it'll work.
When you say work, what does that mean? They're gone?
Work means to manage a flock of geese. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have geese that touch down. On any of the sites that we work for a long period of time, there's new geese flying over that got chased off somewhere else. And there's nobody standing, waving their arms, scaring geese away. So you're going to have geese that drop in. Those are the geese that we talk about in here that are much easier to manage than geese that call this home. Those are the geese you have to drive off. Those are the decoy geese. Those are the geese that other geese see when they're flying over and drop in. Those are the geese that need to go and not be back. The other geese is management, and that's what this is 12 months is about. So the idea that there won't be another poop on a sidewalk, I won't tell you that. That's going to happen. There'll be a time when all of a sudden 50 geese show up, nobody's standing guard at that moment, and they let loose. That's where we work out with park people and park officials. We can't be here every minute of the day. We won't be here. We also have some dog folks that are going to help with that as well. But we respond to that and take action accordingly so that those geese don't imprint. So you will see a giant noticeable difference, but we will still have incidents with geese that occur from time to time.
Okay. So I would guess there's at least 100 down there.
Sure, 100 to 200 is kind of where the number runs as imprinted geese to the site.
Right. So how do we know it's going to work?
Say it again,
How
sir.
do I know that you're being effective?
Well,
I'll go down there in March. There's only 50. Like when will we start seeing results?
Well, hopefully it's not the time when you walk down there and I'm not there and 100 geese fly over and drop in.
That's
and you
exactly
go,
what's
"Well,
gonna happen."
You know, how do I know the difference between these geese? Because I'm not going to be able to paint them orange or paint them green. The best testament I can give is to put Brian in touch with clients that we have and have had long-standing programs where he can talk to them and ultimately see how it works. But the way you're going to be able to measure it is that you're seeing a whole lot less poop and you're seeing a whole lot less geese. The only way you're going to measure that is for people to tell you. So, may sound a little ethereal, but it's basically feet on the ground and making geese go elsewhere.
Okay. Do you think we still need the dogs? Because I think that was one thing I was going to suggest. Maybe if you have people running around, do we need the dogs as well?
I'm not opposed to them. We don't offer dogs for a number of reasons. We used to have dogs, but I'm not opposed to having dogs there. So I can't really answer that. I don't want to be stepping in somebody else's.
No, I understand, but if you're going to be there during the day chasing them from the soccer fields over to the lake, then we probably don't need both. It seems kind of redundant.
Well, it's not going to be redundant because our plans would be to work with Brian, with the other dog folks, to find out what their schedule is. They're going to have a schedule, and they're going to need to work with us. We're going to need to work with them, because we certainly, other than being in the water at the same time that they're moving stuff off the ground, is certainly a good thing. But I don't want to be on the ground when they show up to be on the ground, because then you are wasting some money.
Right.
So
Okay.
we would work that out.
Okay, that's fair enough. How loud the noise is it? Are you going to shoot those things off at night?
Only with permission. That would be something that if we felt we needed to do as we really need to do this, we'd be in contact with Brian, we'd be in contact with the police department to say, at 10 o'clock, we're launching some noise, because we're coming in, we know we got some birds showing up 9:30 at night. They're flying in, they're coming onto the grass.
What exactly are we
We need to be
launching?
there. They're called screamers and bangers.
Fireworks? Like that?
They're basically a firework, a big firecracker.
Like an
that,
M80, a quarter stick?
Quarter stick.
Quarter stick. Now, I'm
Quarter
not,
stick sound?
no. I'm not up on dynamite or
Oh.
anything like that. So
I was going to say, they're pretty loud.
the one projectile is a
C4. We're way beyond
the
that.
one projectile. It's not projectile. The one shell is 2 3/4 inch shotgun shell that launches a delayed fused item 500 feet into the air, and
That's
boom.
a terrible idea down there.
So,
I'm thinking, yeah, well, we'll have to say. That's why I was curious about
well,
that.
again, these are things, like I say, they're all tools. They're all on the table. But again, I don't think it's a terrible thing if you have a police officer out and they see what it is, or somebody gets a demo. It's not something that blows up for
I'm
minutes
not
and
worried
minutes.
about during the day. I'm more concerned at 10 o'clock at night, because there's houses there and people are sleeping. And next thing you know, you're launching this thing in the park.
You don't want me to do it?
Yeah.
We just don't do it.
Yeah, but we don't want you to come back to us and say it wasn't effective because we wouldn't
Well,
allow you to
it's
do
not
it.
going to be ineffective because we don't get to launch a bird banger at 10 o'clock at night. I can tell you that.
all right.
But again, the less that you can dictate when things can be used and can't be used, and I understand it's a public park, so I'm already privy to that I can't run roughshod over folks. This is their park, and we respect their right to be there. Many times we're going to operate and not even going to be known we're there. No one's going to know. Our trucks are not marked. It doesn't have a big goose, doesn't have a big dead goose on the side or anything like that. We just look like a contractor that comes in and is doing some work, and nobody really knows what we're doing.
And the limited take, that's going to be, I assume that means you're going to be,
Killing.
yeah, killing geese. That's going to take place at night so that you're not dragging dead geese out when people are walking around the park.
That would happen before hours or after hours. And that, again, would be a very controlled situation. Shooting is always into the ground. These are not shot at flying geese.
So you are shooting them.
That's right. Okay, and again, this is a permit that has to be secured yet. So we were told 2 years ago we would not have any trouble getting that permit. We just needed to apply for it, and there wasn't the okay to go do that. So if we get the okay, that's going to be the first thing that I get done, is get that permit secured. So we may not need it. If we do need
I
it,
think they're all my questions.
we use it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Obviously, this is I think we had this discussion about some of these options several years ago when I think we
did,
first
yes, sir.
started. But, for some of the members on the board are new, or it's been a while for this discussion to have taken place. I appreciate your patience with us. We just want to make sure this is obviously pretty expensive compared to what we usually do. It's kind of involved, and I hope you understand our concern. One of the questions was already asked that I had. One of the president of the fall soccer club, a couple hundred kids, running around the fields weeknights and et cetera. That was one of his concerns. Like, well, what are they doing when we're going to have kids there, and are they going to be, and so that was, obviously you've done this enough at parks like this that you know how to operate around that kind of thing.
One of the benefits when there's a whole pile of kids there is most likely the geese end up in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's when we go in the water.
Doing your work for you.
Because
right.
they're not going to go back on the ground with 150 kids running around.
Yeah.
We're going to move them off, so.
Okay. Now, let's assume we do this program. let's say next year, because you talked at our last meeting about doing a sort of a full-fledged roundup. Does doing this get us closer to showing, I guess it's the federal government that we've done all these things, we still have a problem, it makes it easier for us to get that permit?
That is correct, and that's based on direct contact with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and USDA representative. But I would tell you that you may not need a roundup, okay? There's certainly a very good chance that you won't with an aggressive program. Most of the sites that we've worked at over the years, we have not done a roundup. And part of that was just the fact that roundups are not that easy to get, okay? There was a time when they were a little simpler, but they still were not the easiest thing to get. We had to develop methods and plans to get the same results that a roundup would give us. We do them. It's great when you can do them, especially at the start, but most times you can't do them at the start. They want you to do all this other stuff. And if it doesn't give you full enough results, then they'll give you a roundup. So we may not need it at all.
Okay.
I do have one more question. Going forward, would this be like a budgeted item, the same cost, or would it get cheaper over time? Is this?
Most of the time they do get cheaper, but a lot of it depends on where you are on the planet, okay? And so there's a lot of goose pressure in eastern Pennsylvania and the western side of New Jersey, everything up and down the river. So we could have several years where you budget the number and you come in well short of that number. And then all of a sudden you get a year where you have a mild winter, an early spring, you get a very productive hatch, you got more geese than you had in the past couple years. All those kinds of things can make numbers go back up again. But this is your big hit for this year. If you stay with the program next year, if you approve this one, you may run same numbers close. I don't think you will. But in a couple years, you should have numbers down. Again, unless you get some fluctuation in population or you get seasonal issues. The fact that we've got ice and snow and all that stuff certainly helps in the winter. Yeah, there's less people out there utilizing the park, many less, but there's less geese sometimes utilizing the park at this time too. And that has as a factor can help with geese not showing back up there in the spring. So there's a lot of variables.
Okay.
Okay.
And I assume this is something, the day we stop doing this is the day that geese all come back to Falls Township. So this is something we're going to be doing all the time.
Well, I don't know if it'll be the next day, but certainly that is the case. Because 6 years ago, we did a roundup. July, August, September were beautiful things at Falls Township Park. There was very few geese. And you started to get a few filtering in. The next year there was more, and by 2 years it was all back to the way it was. So whether you do a roundup or you do the hazing.
We were given this document by Mr. Mariani that goes over stuff like rejects-it fog force. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
And methyl, I can't.
Anthranilate, yeah.
Yeah, that word. And flight control. What about those products and stuff like that?
They're good products. I don't have them on the list. We do use them. Methylanthranilate is used both cold on the grass, and also it's called fog force. It's just repackaged, but it's a thermal fogger where it's ejected out of this ray gun looking thing. So those are all things that can be used. They cost more in terms of the product. Again, Falls Township Park is big. There may be some critical areas that if we get into this program and you say, if someone says, I really can't have anything happen there ever at all again, it may be a product that we want to apply, like flight control. But again, it doesn't stop geese from walking over it. If it's green all around and you got flight control in an acre patch, it doesn't stop them from standing there taking a poop. And that's ultimately what this is all about, is getting rid of poop.
These conversations are amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Gentlemen?
I'm good.
No? All right. All right, let's, is there public comment? See, I know there's been a couple hands. All right, is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. By the time I get up here, it'll be next meeting. I'm sorry for those behind my back. Thank you for your information again, young man, sir. How do you pronounce your last name? Shadle, Mr. Shadle. Two questions. I'm sorry, now it's late. Say 30,000 for upcoming 2015, and apparently we could say the next 5, 10, 20 years, every year, as has been discussed year after year, that this could be a possibility. If this doesn't work out, sir, Mr. Shadle, is there the opportunity, warranty for a refund? And also, is there an opportunity for discussion if this would work, if the park could shut down, if it could shut down for, say, 2 or 3 days with full public knowledge and why this is being done for the safety and perhaps more comfort, quality of life for everyone? Could it be done in 2 or 3 days? Just for discussion, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Shade, I'll let you answer those questions.
Sure. Thank you for the questions. Again, with the cost, the hours that we gave is our worst-case scenario, best guesstimate on just having done this for years. And of course, I'm very familiar with the park and what goes on there. And I've done a little bit of playing with the geese just to see the response I get out of them over the years, just because that's just what I do. So this number could be the same for several years. It could be that we come in at 24.5 at the end of 2015, and next year you budget 26, 27 again, and we come in at 24.5 again. For that money, you will see results. And I can only tell you that not because brash or arrogant or anything like that. It's just what we do. So if I don't get the job done, I'm going to get fired, and I'm going to get fired for everything. So I'm putting it out on the table here tonight. I've been pushing for this for many years to have more done here. I walk around and we gather up eggs and find nests and do all that. Frankly, that's simple work compared to what this is going to be. So I'm putting it all out on the table. You want to get rid of geese, I can get rid of geese. Okay? I can make a difference in this park. That's the only guarantee I can give. I'm not going to say I'm going to give your money back, because everything we do is going to have value and is going to move geese elsewhere. Again, there's a lot of logistics with this, and contact with Ryan Andrews with the park and the folks that work out there, drive around as assistants and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I can quantify that. In terms of the park shutdown, I'm not opposed to the idea of having free reign in the park for 2 or 3 days, but it's certainly not going to solve the problem for the year. It certainly would give us a foot up, I will tell you that. But again, that's a seasonal issue. So what we do in March or April in terms of shutting the park down may not have any bearing on what happens in September or October. So.
Okay. All right, Ms. Mariani.
Thank you. Boy, I'm glad things calmed down. I'm going to be brief. It's getting late. But first, let me assure the geese that it's not my intention to make them pay in EIT, as our chairman implied at the last meeting. Now, I've advised the chairman that geese do not pay taxes, so he doesn't have to be concerned about being accused of establishing a new tax in this township. And that gets me even with you. Now back to serious business, okay?
That was good, Mr. Mariani. I got to give you credit the way you got.
Did you like that?
I did like
that. See? He could take it. He could give it out, but he could take it. We all agree that the methods we've used for years just are not decreasing the geese population. And egg haggling, collie patrol, and all of that are not going to eliminate the geese, as the gentleman told you. He's the expert. I'm not, but I've consistently recommended that the most effective method to eliminate geese that I know of is to treat the products that are unpalatable to geese and they're safe for humans and wildlife. And I've given you a copy of the 3 that I recommended. I believe those products are cost efficient. He'll tell you they do work. Now, My proposal is to give that method a trial. If you could select a confined area, a specific area, like a soccer field, an athletic field, something with some breadth to it, properly apply these products, I think that that selective area may become available for its intended use, whether it's a baseball field or a soccer field, and maybe even in combination with the things that he wants to do. I'd like to give one of those three, or all three of them, a chance to see what they'll do. I believe they will actually eliminate geese. And thank you.
Mr. Marion, let me ask you a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
You've researched the products, I haven't, but have you come across property the size of our park that this has been used on?
Personally, no. But I know it's widely used in some areas. Golf courses, now that's pretty big places. You could see the coverage that you get on some of these 16 acres at $1.85 a gallon. That's pretty cost efficient, you know, and it is effective. And as he had said at the last meetings, a lot of these products are used for confined areas, putting greens, so on and so forth. But they can be used for wider areas. I'd like to see if we can get that one section, see how it works in our park. If it does, maybe he could expand the program. He's definitely accustomed to working with these products, but they have to be properly applied. They don't wash off, they don't cut off, so I'd like to give it a shot, see what we do. We haven't done anything. These things are monsters. You know.
Would you and Mr. Roland Kenny be willing to go down there with the Rejected Fogs Force ray gun he spoke about, chasing the geese and fogging them?
Well, I belong to a gun club. I wouldn't mind going down there with a couple of firearms that I'm familiar with. Being an old Marine Corps sergeant, I think I could eliminate.
I shouldn't have asked, right? I shouldn't have asked.
And anybody else who tried to stop me.
Well, would something like that, if we coated one of the soccer fields, would that be something that would be feasible to try?
We certainly can do it. Again, I'm not opposed to it. There's certain things to remember. Geese will still stand on the grass and poop. So the area that you pick can't be in the center of grass. It's got to be on an edge, because if they're crossing from edible grass to edible grass and you got treated grass in the middle, you're going to have the same probably mess in the middle. So that's part of the problem. And a couple of it's $185 a gallon. Okay. It's not inexpensive stuff. The Rejected is a little less. It is mowed off, okay? As the grass blades grow, it's stuck on the grass blades and it extends out. So this is something that has to be coordinated with a mow schedule. Last thing you want to do is put it on, the next day it gets mowed off, kind of a thing. So they mow, boom, the next day it gets applied.
So it doesn't last very long. It's
gonna last for 2 mow schedules. Okay, you're going to have that blade length extended out after 2 mow schedules. Yeah. Putting greens, those types of things, very effective. My time is up.
No, it was.
So again, there's an area that, if we've got an area that we just don't want geese there, let's give this a try. I'm more than happy to apply it, and we would apply it, with all gusto and make it work. But again, still got to move the geese.
Okay, any other public comment? Mona, good.
Are there any automated processes like tethered dirigibles or drones that can help support this?
Drones, something like that.
Put missiles
Tethered dirigibles, balloons, those types of things are not effective on Canada geese. They're not effective with most birds. They'll have an impact for a day or two because it's just something new and odd. But beyond that, they're just another scarecrow kind of a thing. In terms of drones, absolutely can be of great effect. I don't use them. I know of companies that do on the West Coast. And if this gentleman has one, I'd be happy to get him to help. So those are things that can move out over water. So when you immediately move geese off the land, they move into the water. We move into action with boats because that's what has to happen. And if you add a third layer to that, certainly I wouldn't say no. If he wants to come have fun with us, I'll invite him.
Maybe the Falls Police can budget for a drone next year.
Don't give. I said don't give Lieutenant Ward any ideas. No, right. He's ready to go start filling out grant applications. He's probably got one in his pocket right now. Yes. Any other public comment? See no hands or motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so we've heard a good amount of information. And there was a question I had that popped in my head when Mr. Manani was talking, and out went out of my head. We have, well, I'll move on, maybe it'll come to me. Excuse me. We have the proposal here, 27,400, which, as Mr. Shadle has said, is sort of like the worst case scenario, the not to exceed number. So it may be less than that. I know a couple board members had the idea of sort of coming in at a lower number and just, budgeting a certain amount and saying to Mr. Shadle, we'll pay this much and conduct the program as best you can within that frame. I don't know if that's something we want to do or not. That's up to the board.
That was me. I was one of the people that thought that, but I didn't realize it was a not to exceed number. So I guess this year, if we have a number and to gauge what exactly is going to be effective, what exactly we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm all in. I want to see if it works, so.
Okay, other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we're 27.4 plus the money we spent. I mean, I would really like to try the chemical, as Mr. Mariani talks about. I'd like to find an area we can test it on.
Okay.
Well, we can still test it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Galloway?
I don't mean, were you saying instead of doing this?
Oh, no. In addition to this.
Yes. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm with you.
Like maybe we have an area where, because this is a do not exceed number, so we can have an area where we're not going to have him work on right now, and we're going to try chemical on that area.
He'd have to do, well, yeah, but he'd have to put it
He'd
down.
have to, but I'm saying any of the other,
Right.
see what's effective.
Okay.
May I comment on that? We certainly aren't going to take a piece of property off the map and just say, well, we're not going to touch that, we're just going to spray it, because before long, the geese will recognize that even though I'm not eating it, it's sure nice to stand on because they never come over here. So we can't do that.
I'm okay with that. Maybe instead of using the bird bombs and the noises, we can use chemical.
Well, I wouldn't want to take that off the table either, because there's times I've been at the park late evening, early morning for our work, and it's dead. So I think if we work with the police and perhaps a notice that's put out, public notice or whatever, folks become aware of this. But it doesn't take long when you use these. I mean, we use them at some pretty big name businesses as well, and they always have the same, kind of concerns about it. And there is a learning curve for everybody, and usually it doesn't turn out to be an issue. We're just very smart when we use them. I got folks out walking at 12 o'clock at lunch anywhere. I'm not going to be shooting off something like this. I'm not going to go notify everybody. We got other things to do, but you don't ever want to take everything off or anything off if I can use it 4 times in a year, I want to use it those 4 times. We'll just be judicious where we use it. The other thing is the chemical, I've got no allocation for that in this price.
We understand that.
So,
okay.
Applying it, not a problem. We're here working, we apply it.
One of the things I kind of remember the question I had. I'm not necessarily against using, like you said, the bird bangers and the noises and things like that. If we do, as you already mentioned, discussing or working with our police department, the residents there on Wheatsheaf Road, pretty much the only residents that are, in that area, really aren't that many. It's really only a handful of houses there. So I would be fine with even doing a demonstration for them, just to have them hear what it's going to sound like and then ask them what their thoughts are about it, because it really is literally their backyard.
Sure. Well, the one gentleman was here last week. He wanted to come hunt them with you.
Right. He's probably fine with it.
He'll be all on board.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to do considering how few residents there are there. Just to have them come out and hear what it's going to be, what it's going to sound like, and is this going to be an issue if we do it at this time of night, this time in the morning, something we could, and obviously have some of our police officers too, so they know what it is, and, you know, if they start getting reports from somebody about gunshots or something going off, that they understand what it is ahead of time. So I just think that's kind of a, you know, if we move forward with that, I'd like to see that anyway, part of the plan. All right, well, it sounds like people are in favor of moving ahead with the whole
Mr. Mariani,
package here.
we know he's passionate about this.
The only thing I would add is,
Use the mic, please.
yes.
Typically, don't get 2 bites of the apple here.
You can spray this area, but it's not gonna stop the geese from walking on it and doing their business, but the way I see rejects it, it's a spray repellent sprayed on the grass that causes a pain sensation when the geese inhale it. So if they're gonna walk on it, they're gonna have to hold their breath. So I would assume that they would, you know, it irritates the nerves,
Geese can't hold their
mucous
breath.
membranes. So it seems they're not gonna be walking around on this.
That's not, you know, we're not the experts on that.
It has to be eaten, and that's where the ray gun comes in. That's a thermal fogger, so it affects their nerve inside their mouth, the trigeminal nerve, and it causes pain. It's used on all kinds of birds, but it has to be eaten. It doesn't come through the feet, but it has to be eaten, or it has to be inhaled. And stuff sprayed on the grass is not vocking off vapors. It's fixed stuff on the grass. So it'd be something that if we did want to use it, that's how it would be used, a thermal fogger. So it smells like it's grapeseed extract is what it is, so.
Okay.
It's pretty innocuous stuff.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing.
Sure.
I just want to say that, you know, we might joke around about this, but this is serious business, these geese, and they really are destroying our park. They really are making it miserable for people to walk down there. It's disgusting at some places. To think that kids are playing soccer on those fields is disgusting. So, you know, as much as we joke about this and as entertaining as these meetings are, this is serious business, and these geese aren't a joke.
So, okay. Is there a motion then from board members with the proposal we have in front of us?
I'll make the motion for cost not to exceed 27.4.
I'll second.
Okay. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Mr. Shadle, thank you very much for your time and
Thank
your
you.
patience this evening.
Have a safe trip home.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. All right, next item, we have 2 items, numbers 5 and 6, involve our traffic engineer. Mr. Beach is here along with his associate to discuss a couple different projects. Item 5 is a proposal for Remington and Vertica Beach for South Olds Boulevard crossings. These are crossings by the golf course, by the Oxford Valley Golf Course. There is one area where we do have a crosswalk, but I think it's pretty faded, and there's another area where we're considering putting a crosswalk just because we know people cross there, but there is no crossing at that point. So, Mr. Beach, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as you indicated, this is for, it really came out of the Traffic Advisory Committee. First, they asked me to take a look at these crossings. You basically have 2 fairways that cross South Olds in 2 locations. One is currently striped. We looked at what would be procedure that you would have to follow if, in fact, you wanted to stripe the second one, or do any other improvements to that area to try to notify the motorists of the potential crossing. The one that's striped there now, you can go and redo that, and repaint it. There's really it's not a big deal. The second one, however, has to adhere to PennDOT Publication 46 and have a traffic study done. Basically, the study would include looking at the existing roadway characteristics, peak hour traffic counts, police crash report analysis, and future traffic volumes at that location. That would have to be packaged and sent to PennDOT to get their approval. In addition, we had talked in the TAC meetings of potentially also looking at something a little bit beyond that, maybe some flashing warning signs. So at the same time, we'll take a look at that, present you some options with this study that would look at those improvements, and you could take a look at to see whether or not it's something that you want to move forward with as far as your budget. We'll also look at improving the signage in the area to try to indicate that there is 2 crossings in the area. Right now, I guess it does present a little bit of a problem as far as, you know, the visibility, because only one of them is striped. And it will also include that any of the ramps that go from side to side would also have to be adjusted so that they are ADA compliant. Estimated cost for the study is $3,650. With that, if you have any questions?
Okay. Comments or questions for Mr. Beach? Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Brasky?
No.
Mr. Dents?
This is something, this location came up, like Mr. Beach said, during the Neighborhood Traffic Advisory Council meetings. It was targeted as one of the hot spots where there's a lot of speeding down there. Lieutenant Airy pointed out that it's always been a problem that we have pedestrians crossing back and forth on both sides of the golf course, but no real markings. He referred to other locations where they put the not dividers, but the thing in the middle of the road, which helped traffic. Makefield Road was one location he talked about. So that was where we started with this whole area and targeting it. So I think it's a good idea. I mean, it only makes sense that a golf course has crosswalks.
Sure.
When you have no choice but to walk back and forth.
Mr. Rocco?
No, I think it makes sense, so.
Yeah, no, I have no issues either. Is there any public comment? I see one hand. Motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Mr. Benny?
I just have one question you probably might even know the answer to. This county golf course, why aren't they paying for it?
It's our road.
Township Road.
They're crossing.
They're not going to pay for anything.
Yeah. They're finally putting up a net to stop the golf balls from hitting the senior center, and that's been about 12 years. So, but I appreciate, if we waited for them to pay for it, we'd, like we're waiting for them to clean up the Chatham Road drainage problem, it would be a while. So, but it's not a bad point. Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at $3,650 for a traffic study to do the second crosswalk, or determine the location of the second crosswalk at South Olds Boulevard by the Oxford Valley Golf Course. Is there a motion to expend $3,650 for that study?
I'll make the motion.
Seconded.
Mrs. Pullum?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Brasky?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is presentation from Mr. Beach in Remington, Vernon Beach about the New Falls Road Sidewalk project. This is a project that Township has talked about for several years, and we've kind of gone through a variety of plans. We had some plans that were upwards of like $900,000 that we immediately decided was just not feasible and was not going to happen, and we ended up hiring Remington Vernon Beach to come in and take a look at this, as well as be a traffic engineer. And they put together what we think is a pretty good idea of a project that we think can be done in an efficient way that also, provides safe travel for people on that road. Mr. Beach is going to give us some ideas here of what's going to happen with this project, what it's going to look like conceptually, and then we may decide to move forward on this and go ahead and advertise. So, Mr. Beach, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And also, I brought one of my project engineers, Leanna. She's going to help me with the presentation. You can stand up. All right. All right, basically, this sidewalk runs from Hood Boulevard, Penn Valley Road, up along New Falls Road, and connect Vermillion Drive, which connects two general neighborhoods. By the way, I'm going to try to be real brief with this presentation. But if you look at it with an aerial, you get a little bit better perspective. Right now, you've got the high school here with all the sports fields. There is a gas station in the corner, but basically this whole neighborhood to the east, the Throne Ridge Drive area, really has no sidewalk access to any of the access to the school. So we're trying to connect the neighborhoods to the schools. The area right in the middle here is the Learning Center that just is currently being constructed, or is probably constructed by now. So what this sidewalk hopefully will do is connect the dots and connect from Vermillion all the way down to Hood Boulevard. All right. There we go. I'll get it. It's all right. Basically, it sounds pretty simple. It's just it's just a sidewalk connecting the dots. Unfortunately, it's along a PennDOT road, so it got a lot more complicated. There was a lot of issues that we had to go through back and forth numerous times with PennDOT. Basically, what we're going to be doing is a concrete and asphalt sidewalk connecting, again, New Falls Road between Vermillion and Penn Valley Drive. It's located within the right-of-way. Improvements include all ADA compliant curb ramps and pedestrian crossings at Vermillion Drive and Amelia Drive, and a modified modified area in front of a couple of the businesses and storefronts. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leanne. She's going to go over the actual individual segments.
Okay, so the sidewalk is proposed to start at the Rita's and Dunkin' Donuts. There's an existing sidewalk that kind of starts there, so we figured that would be a good connection point. The sidewalk kind of moves along the baseball field fence and in between the ditch. That seemed the best route for that way. And then it continues up, excuse me, north to Amelia Drive. As we get to Amelia Drive, you can see there's a weird little ramp area here, and in order to install those ramps, we had to modify some storm sewer improvements. That was several iterations with PennDOT back and forth in order to get that those ramps to be efficient in that area.
That's at JoJo's, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, right.
Mm-hmm. Also in that area, you can see that there's a pedestrian crossing to cross New Falls Road, and there'll be signage on each side as long as and in addition to the striping. As we get to the area of JoJo's Ice Cream, the bowling alley, and the automotive repair, in order to allow for a 5-foot wide sidewalk, we had to modify the parking lots. So that'll include restriping those areas in order to provide better circulation and allow for like a path in that area, a safe pedestrian path. All of the road striping is a PennDOT requirement.
If I can, I'll just pause for a second. We've had conversations with those business owners, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've met with them. I know I met with a couple of them here, and just to talk about what we'd be doing, and I think we kind of proved to them that we really could actually redo the parking lots, their parking lots, in a way that was advantageous to them.
Right. They won't lose any spots the way that we have it reconfigured, and by restriping, it'll better organize their parking lots as well.
Okay.
So then the sidewalk continues to the Learning Center, which is constructed already, so we're going to tie into that and utilize that sidewalk. From there, the sidewalk continues with ramps and crosswalks in front of the Vermillion Square Shopping Center. And then we kind of snake it through in order to avoid the existing utility poles, because we want to avoid having to move those. So then it continues to Vermillion Drive and Thornridge Pass, where we have a crossing there with, again, signs, and the sidewalk will tie into the existing area. So hopefully we'll fill this void of where there isn't any sidewalk to provide a safe path to
So
cross.
on that back side there, Thornridge, is that sidewalk already exist?
There's a sidewalk that exists.
Oh, does it curve all the way around?
It curves down, yeah, so we would connect.
So we're not putting a sidewalk on that side, just a crosswalk.
No, that's proposed. There's sidewalk.
Yeah, there's a little bit. Yeah, I
There's
think
a
it's
little
only
bit past
blacktop.
that, but we would connect to
Yeah.
the existing.
Okay.
Is it crosswalk, do you walk up, are you going to hit a button and light up a walk, or
No, it's just
is there going to be signs?
It's
No?
just striped, and there's signs, so.
Yeah, it's an area where people are crossing already. In fact, it might even be striped now.
That one's striped.
Yeah.
Striped now.
The Amelia one's new.
Right.
Which will connect to the shopping center on the other side.
Right. Where Castan's
Where
is.
there are side
So we're hoping
Yes.
that people will cross over
That's the
to
idea.
go, yeah.
Right. And that would be one of the issues, and for a long time, we looked at the Thornridge side of New Falls, and how it's a pretty wide shoulder there, blacktop. There's a white stripe, obviously, for the side of the road, then there's a pretty wide shoulder. And one of the original plans from a different engineering firm was to just sort of make that the sidewalk. My concern at the time, several years ago, was that there's no physical barrier there. You're encouraging people to walk on a surface that's even with the road. So if a car drifts, someone's not paying attention, they're texting, they have, somebody has some kind of a heart attack or something, they're just going to drift into those people. We talked about maybe putting curbs in or a guardrail and having the walkway behind it, and that was something that we were told PennDOT just wouldn't do. And that's kind of why I'm anxious to make sure that, and I'm hoping we've put a lot of signage on that side of the roadway that, no pedestrian traffic, no bike traffic, to really try to encourage people to cross over, get under Vermilion Hillside, use the sidewalk on that side. That would be one of the things, and if it's not in there, I'd like to see that part, just some extra signage to really try to make it clear on that, from Thornridge Pass down to the Thornridge Shopping Center, don't walk on the Thornridge side. People do a lot now. I see them almost every day when I'm coming home from work, kids coming home, well, not so much, when it's 18 degrees out, but, otherwise they're walking on there, pretty well. So that's that'd be my concern.
Is any of the center striping, is that new?
Yes.
For us,
we had to do, just to appease PennDOT, we had to add additional striping in the middle of the road as well as along the shoulder of the road.
Yeah, the center striping, right? The diagonal lines, center striping there, right there? Yeah.
That's existing.
That's existing? Oh, up top. Oh, okay, I see.
That should have been done as part of the learning experience construction.
Yeah, I think that's existing.
Oh, that's, the learning experience did that?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yes. Yeah, that, because they have a left-hand turn lane.
Right. Okay.
Well, most of the project we're projecting as being concrete sidewalk in this area in particular. The pointer. And as Leanna indicated, the original or the previous plan that was looked at was putting a nice straight sidewalk all the way along in front of that shopping center. But to do that, there's telephone poles that had to be relocated, which means a lot of utilities were being replaced, and the light for the shopping center were also in the way. So we found out if we just take it and just put slight jogs in that sidewalk, we were able to work right around those two items, and we don't need to replace them, which is being able to save a considerable amount. Oops. Did I get this right? This is not mine. This is your. That's the end of this show. I was going to go back to the. Can I do this? Not mine. Here comes our help. Okay. She got it. Thanks.
You're hired.
You didn't hire me for my IT skills, that's for sure. Yeah, and I just want to reemphasize again, in this area between in front of the bowling alley and the automotive shop, right now what you have is a 6-inch concrete curb that sticks above grade. On one side's the roadway, one side's the parking lot. Along here, what we're recommending is that we put in the bid, alternate bids with different types of pavement treatments. What we want to do is try to differentiate it and make sure it looks like different than the parking lot. So you could simply paint it. You could paint symbols on it. You could put pavers in there. You could put stamped asphalt. There's a lot of potential alternates that you can look at, and depending on their cost and your budget, we may be able to do something a little bit different in there, just again, to make a difference between the sidewalk and the parking areas. The only other area is this final area here. We're recommending that all be asphalt, and that really is, as Leanna mentioned, there's a large drainage ditch that runs along the frontage here. So we kind of tucked it behind it, so you're really not going to see it. Again, it's just, we're recommending we just go with asphalt in those areas. Okay. Dan, have any questions?
All right. Questions for Mr. Beach? Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Boraski?
I know the project's been going on and talked about for a while. Has there been talk, a lot of these areas are still going to be dark, even walking at night, as we talked about. You know, I was already looking for lighting up that crosswalk, but lighting it all along the path, have we discussed that?
We haven't, and I'll be honest, I mean, I think the learning experience has put in more light, so that area is brighter. I'd really have to kind of pay more attention to it, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd have to go through just, yeah, so I'd have to really, but it's not a bad point, certainly something we can look at.
I think with the exception of this area right here, which goes behind, the ditch is actually wooded.
Yeah.
And you're going behind that, and the sports fields are right there. That's probably going to be dark back.
Right.
That stretch right there.
Yeah.
Everything else, you're pretty much in front of existing businesses. So although you might not have a lot of light, you should have light from those businesses. And again, you know, the whole idea is to get people off the street. Right now, like you say, they're pretty much walking down the middle of the street.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if we can get them back into a safer zone, I think you're probably going to be okay here. But that might be something that you might want to look at. Maybe you work in conjunction with the school. I don't know if there's any electric or anything back in there.
It's
so.
a school. That's school property there. There's already. I mean, you go and look at it, and all of us, if not most of us, have gone and actually walked this and talked to the engineer about it. And yeah, but there's already a path behind that, the wooded area behind the varsity baseball field. There's already a path you can see worn there that people are already walking back there between the path and almost obviously kids mostly walking to, you know, like you said, Rito's or walking to, you know, Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. So it's a pretty worn path. This would just be paving it, but you're right, that would definitely be the darkest area.
We did just put lights in that field right next to there.
Right. Yeah.
That's something we can look at, I guess, at some point.
Sure.
This is something that, I guess, we're commenting on this? No?
Yeah, I don't know if you had any other questions.
No, I mean, lighting was a concern. If we want to encourage people, if we're going to do the project, we want to encourage people to use it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it lit, and I'm still kind of hung up on that crosswalk. I think, again, we're encouraging people to use it. I like to see them walk up at night, hit the button, and, you know, have flashing caution lights that somebody's crossing the street. You know, I've been in Princeton, Jeff. I know you've been in Princeton. You see that you hit the buttons in Princeton. They have beacons in the road and everything. They take their crosswalk serious. You know, they have a lot more foot traffic, of course, than we do.
Something we'll probably have to go back to PennDOT and make sure we can get the approval from them,
Right.
but something we can look at. Maybe put that in as an alternate bid.
Right.
This is something, you're done?
Yeah, go ahead.
That, this has been going on before I was even on this board, the original plan.
Yeah.
And we've been out there many times discussing different options and ideas. And the intent was to connect the two different neighborhoods, Thorn Ridge, Vermilion Hills, and get all the way up to the high school, so to speak, and on both sides. And this, I think, is a really good plan. I mean, the best we've come to yet. Where there's no, you know, there were some spots where we're just going to have gravel and it was just going to be marked. This here is everything's paved and everything is either a sidewalk, you know, with the exception of in front of the JoJo's and the auto repair. You know, that's still going to be marked pretty well. So I think this is a good plan. That's going to be a lot more cost effective than the original sidewalk plan. And this is going to provide a safe path back and forth on New Falls Road. That's all I have for now, I guess.
Yeah, I've worked with Mr. Beach on some of this, including the crosswalk there on Amelia. I think at first we weren't sure we were going to be able to do it. When I say we, I mean PennDOT. But you guys got that done, so that's good. Otherwise, I don't see them really crossing over that side and then walking down. So, and I do agree with Mr. Boraski on that back side, though. I think we need to figure out how to get lights there. So I think that's all I had.
Okay.
The crosswalks weren't random either. The crosswalks are connecting sidewalks on the other side of the street.
Right.
Yeah, there's a shopping center
Which
right
is-
here.
yeah,
and
that
you
was the
connect directly
questionable
to that
one.
sidewalk, so.
Right. That's all I have.
So if we approve this, what's the time frame we're looking at?
Well, at this point, we have our PennDOT approval.
Not yet, we need to get that.
We need to get our soil erosion permit yet, but it's minor on this type of a project, so we don't anticipate that being a problem. So at this point, if you're okay with the plan, we can go ahead and advertise for bids. So we're in that stage at this point.
How long
Move
is
as fast as you want to.
How long is the construction phase, do you think?
This construction is probably about 2 months.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we've had, there have been, unfortunately, fatalities among pedestrians on New Falls Road. Fortunately, knock wood, none in Falls Township, but, a couple in Bristol Township, including a student at the tech school when we first opened in 2000. I think it was maybe September, first month we were open as a school. There was a 9th grade student, who I still remember his name, who was killed crossing New Falls Road. And that is what forced Bristol Township to put in a walkway and crosswalks at that point and have a crossing guard there. There was an adult that was killed a couple of years ago, also walking in Bristol Township, part of New Falls Road. And there may not be, incredible foot traffic here in terms of hundreds of people a day, but certainly none of us really want to wait until something horrible happens to say, well, maybe we should have done that. We'd rather do it now. And I know, as I referenced earlier, Mr. Dents referenced, one of the original proposals was to have an 8-foot wide, macadam walkway that went from St. Joseph the Worker all the way down, to Hood Boulevard, and that was the one that was like, $900,000, and we all immediately said at that point that was no, we didn't want that. And so I think, I agree with Mr. Dents, and I think this is definitely something we'd like to see move forward. I guess the options we have, because Mr. Brasky brings up some good points in terms of lighting and also with the crosswalk, the walking man, the hand and walking man signs. If we want to move forward on this and then ask the engineers to kind of go back to PennDOT while we're moving forward with this bid process and see what it would be, how difficult it is to get those, and we can sort of add those in later, but at least we get this ball moving. The lighting, I don't think, obviously we don't need any kind of permits for the lighting issue. We can just figure that out ourselves. So, but we could do that. I don't necessarily know if we want to just stop and ask PennDOT first and then go and bid it afterwards. I think I would prefer to bid it now, but.
With the issue of the crosswalk, the lighted crosswalk, we put it as an alternate bid, and PennDOT doesn't allow you to do it, then you just don't award that portion of the bid. So you can still move forward with it now if you choose.
Okay.
I mean, one advantage of doing it right now is, you're going to be one of the first projects out of the gate, so it's usually more favorable as far as construction costs. So it's a good time to put things out right now. So.
Okay. Is that all right? Sounds good.
Sounds great. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. What's public comment? I'm sure we're going to have a couple of hands. Motion to open public comment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Ms. Jones, ladies first. There we go.
Thank you for the presentation. I lost my thought. This is going to be on the side where the ice cream, the bowling alley. Okay. Yes. Now, is it going to be safe? There's a lot of traffic, a lot of cars, and they're with their kids, their families, and they're bowling, and who knows if they've been drinking from across the street sometimes. Is this going to be safe for the pedestrians with all those in and out driveways? Okay, and over the past year and a half, I know when I've been here, I have, in my opinion, we do need something because they do walk, the youngsters, the adults, whoever does walk down on the Thornridge side. There's the branches, and I mentioned this before, the branches hang over, the weeds are growing up, and sometimes they walk out in the street. We need something, however, it has to be safe in all the driveways coming out. And also, is this going to encourage, which I think it should, the folks, the residents from Fallsington to cross Tyburn Road and use that? Because they do walk across Tyburn Road, even though their signs don't. Right. And to me, that's a horrible intersection, but Tyburn Road and Business Route 1, they have signs that, you press the button, if I remember correctly. You can walk across that highway intersection, but you cannot walk from Fallsington up to St. Joseph, up to get ice cream or bowling or to the hardware. It makes no sense. So hopefully that's going to be taken up in a discussion. How can we get safely the Fallsington residents to welcome them over and to use the path and walk up freely and safely and legally? Thank you, and thank you for your presentation.
The crosswalks that you're referring to, near my neighborhood are because the bus stops are on both sides of the road, so people are walking out. Those crosswalks are specifically just for those.
No, I understand. In fact, I've been down there with Chuck, if I remember, Chuck McElhaney's office a year or so ago regarding the bus stops, because one of the bus stops was on the island, which was not safe at all. Okay, in fact, both of those bus stops are in the dark at night. One's by the cemetery. But my thinking is, during the course of time, get some kind of safety crossing across Tyburn, not necessarily a crosswalk, because you can't do that, but get safety issues, safety signs. How can residents cross back? They do it anyway. It's not doing legally. And welcome them to come up New Falls Road to where they want to go safely and legally without, being it's hard down there with the hill and the way the road is now.
Right.
But we need to consider the Fallsington residents and how do we get them up on this crosswalk. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
May I?
Sure.
At our last meeting, we saw the presentation from McGrath for his plans for the St. Joseph to Worker property. So one of the reasons why we stopped here and didn't want to go down there was because we knew the school was closing and we didn't think there were going to be a lot of kids. But you bring up a good point. So when that gets developed, and it looks like it's going to, hopefully we make them put in sidewalks to begin the process of connecting everything.
Right, down past the district judge
Correct.
chambers, past across Fallsington, across Tyburn Road safely with push buttons and big whatever we need to do to make them safe. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Beach, if you wouldn't mind just addressing the issue, because I think Ms. Jones picks up a good point here, between the, I guess it's Costello Fuels now, what used to be Rini's, and you have JoJo's, and you have the bowling alley, and you have, there are a lot of sort of ingress, egress, and the sidewalks going across there.
Sure. And one of the things when we walked it, we saw that there was a major problem. One of the I guess, options that was thrown out earlier by another firm was to actually have you walk alongside the road right in this area right now that's currently striped. There is an existing curb that runs all along the front of these properties. What we've done is pushed people to the other side of that curb. That curb is still going to be 6 inches high. But the sidewalk is going to be right behind that curb. What we've had to do that, though, was take the bowling alley. Right now, bowling alley right now parks head-on directly right up to the curb line. So we pushed them back 5 feet, and we added concrete bumpers along their property to keep them from driving into or parking into the sidewalk area. In addition, the automotive store, they basically had all cars that were right down, again, parked in the right-of-way, right up against the curb line. What we've shown that property owner was if we push him back 5 feet and restripe his driveway, he's not going to lose any parking spots. And he'll still have the same circulation through his lot that he has now. So we were able to do that. And in addition, PennDOT requested that we add this striping, which again pushes the travel lane further, another 10 feet out, further away from that curb line. So again, we're trying to push everybody back behind the curbs, back away from the travel lanes, and we pretty much were able to do that along the whole
Yeah, so all that striping's new.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. All right, good.
That'll
Great.
help.
Okay, other, Mr. Mariani.
What is the total cost of this project?
Mr. Beach, what's the projections, I guess, you have right now?
Well, we're estimating about 200,000 at this point.
200,000? Okay, because when the budget was 166. I'm not going to be very popular because I've been opposed to this, and I had never considered this a safety issue any more today than it was in 2011. New Falls Road, you're going to do this, but I'm going to give you my objections. We could live with that, can't we?
Absolutely.
We're used to
New
it.
Falls Road was constructed as a motorized road. The difference between the houses, schools, stores, and public transportation are great enough to discourage walking and require travel by motor vehicle. You want to encourage people to walk down New Falls Road. That's the same thing as tell them walk along the train tracks and then wonder why they get hit by trains. Now, sidewalks should be built in areas where a need can be clearly established. Do we have a documented estimate of need and probable use? Not since 2011 that I know of. What circumstances are there that indicate we have a need for this? There are no recreational areas or development that does or would generate larger volume of pedestrian traffic. There's nothing there right now. You have athletic fields at Pennsbury, but they're not on New Falls Road. There's an entrance and there's an exit to a parking lot that's used by motorized vehicles. There's no pedestrian traffic going in and out of there. Thornridge Shopping Center, since I've been here, since 1979, it's never been frequented by pedestrians any more than any other business on that road. That's why they all have parking lots. The discussion during the Learning Center when that was being built was on a traffic study about drop-off, pick-up, turnaround, and parking, and never was pedestrian traffic even a topic. Now, when I say there's a scarcity of pedestrians, I don't mean in Vermilion Hills or in Thornridge. I mean on New Falls Road. I clocked that road for months. Now, the Federal Highway Administration guidance on bike and pedestrian travel, the exemption reads, when the cost of accommodation is excessively disproportionate to the need or probable use and documented absence of current and future need is not produced, which is where we are, there's no need to build. I especially believe that's true based on our 2015 budget commitments, which are considerable. We committed all of our estimated host fees against this year. We've committed $1,271,600 at the cost of $316,000 for open space. Host community fees, total revenue declined by 11.89%, which is close to $6 million. We haven't made a contribution to long-term savings in 5 years. We're committed to a $17 million new township complex, and we've taken over $6 million out of our restricted savings to begin this project. That's where we are, and there is no need, I believe, to proceed with this unnecessary expenditure. My biggest concern is you're talking about $200,000. That's not even close. You're already talking about a crosswalk. You're telling me that it's not going to be too long before you're going to require sidewalks on both sides. The last time we talked about that was in this is what I'm saying. It doesn't mean you said it. But I see it coming. This is the beginning of an excuse to build on both sides. And in 2011, that was $995,000. So I know I'm a little tight with money, and I'm slightly more conservative than this board is. I don't think fiscally we ought to get involved in this project right now. Furthermore, it's absolutely unnecessary, my opinion. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? See no hands or motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Any more comments or questions from board members? Mr.
I want to comment that, we've been out there, and I know Mr. Mariani, and this goes back to before I was on this board, that we just don't agree on this. And every time that we've ever been out there, we've been out there numerous times, myself and Mr. Harvey, myself and Mr. Rocco, with Mr. Beach, with our old engineer. We've never been out there when you didn't see people walking back and forth on New Falls Road.
Riding bikes.
Or riding bikes. Never. Or riding their scooters. Never.
I believe you saw them.
Good.
I didn't, but I don't hear voices.
But you got neighborhoods where you're connecting. There's an ice cream shop there. There's a bowling alley there. To say there's no recreation, there's baseball fields.
Where?
Levittown and Merritt.
I'm on New Falls Road.
Mr. Yatsko Field's on New
Yatsko
Falls
Field
Road.
is on New Falls Road. The entrances. We own the parking lot.
Levittown American.
school?
Yeah, it's a school
That
parking
connects
lot
the school.
I said, that's a parking lot.
It's a
to-
baseball field.
To the baseball field.
That's where they play baseball. But there's plenty of recreation, and we're not building sidewalks. We're connecting and finishing sidewalks that are there. Connecting neighborhoods is the intention of this. Not building sidewalks to nowhere or a bridge to nowhere, whatever you want to call it. We're connecting neighborhoods. We're making it safer. And like Mr. Harvey said, rather than wait till something does happen and then say, man, we really should have done that 5 years ago when we talked about it. Now, here we are, 6 years later, we're finally getting something done.
10 years ago, on New Falls Road, where you said that young fellow was killed, they laid down, PennDOT did it, put a strip down there, and when McElhenney and Tomlinson and so forth got in touch with PennDOT, they were interested in doing that here. But nobody ever got back to Mr. Galloway or Tina Davis, or for that matter, McElhenney.
Not really sure that's accurate, but this is something we've been in the works since, for a while. Let's put it that way.
I've been with you since day
But
one on that.
I know you have.
I know.
I know.
And before I was here.
Yeah, and it's,
This is
it's
making it
interesting.
safer on New Falls Road.
It is, absolutely.
At the end of the day.
And looking at I know there's a photograph in here. I'm trying to figure out find which one it is. One of the old photographs we have here is actually at the corner of Hood Boulevard and New Falls Road, from the 1950s or 60s. And it's pretty, it's over, oh yeah, there it is. It's pretty clear. This was like a lot of roads in the lower part of this county. It was a country road. It was a road that connected different towns, Newportville and Fallsington. That's where New Falls comes from. It was all farms, and it was a dirt road that got paved at some point in concrete. And then as Levittown came in and spread it up around it, and that was the era of the car. Everyone had them. Everybody wanted them, bigger and better. And so sidewalks just weren't as important at the time. But you still had people walking. My wife, who grew up in Thornridge, talked about walking up all the time to the different, stores and things like that.
Mr. Harvey, I could tell you, I never mentioned it before, but in my youth, one of my best friends was hit by a car right on New Falls Road and Vermillion Drive. And he survived, but it was a horrible thing.
Sure. Yeah. So, we think it's taken a while to get to this point. We're trying to be conscious of money, definitely. We're trying to be conscious of the rights of the property owners, the business owners. We didn't want to do anything that was going to inconvenience them or take any of their property away. And looking at ways to do it, as Mr. Beach alluded to, not having to move utility lines or move all kinds of different things that would add to the cost and add to the complications. And so, this is definitely something I would like to see us move forward on, and I think we're in agreement. I think on how we move forward, and I think we closed public comment already, but I'll entertain a motion at this point to direct the engineers to go out to bid on the New Falls Road sidewalk.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm being heckled by Mr. Mariano.
Well, yeah,
I would never do that.
we all are.
I would never do that.
All right. Item number 8 on the agenda, consider quotes for rides and games for the Falls Township Family Festival Queue for the Troops event. Mr. Gray?
Yes, the township secured 3 quotes for the rides for the Queue for the Troops Family Festival. The 3 quotes include Rainbow Productions, $11,865, J-Dogs Amusements, $11,044, and Perfect Party Rentals, $8,186. The board is asked to consider Perfect Party Rentals in the amount of $8,186, subject to securing an indemnity agreement and proof of insurance.
Okay. Mr. Andrew?
Good evening.
or good night. We looked at 5 or 6 different companies. These were the 3 we came down to, you know, because we wanted to get a good package, and they were all comparable. Rainbow's been a provider of ours for many years, and they do a great job. Looking into it, though, the numbers don't lie. Perfect Party Rentals puts together an attractive package that closely rivals what Rainbow can offer us. And more importantly, they offer the same amount of attendance. You know, the attendance and help with the rides to help us put a safe, efficient event on. And that's the main reason I think we should go with them.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, comments or questions for Mr. Andrews? Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Boraski? Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
No.
No?
Thank you.
I noticed from your letter that you did check out a couple of places where Perfect Party Rentals.
That's correct.
They do, and those are, I'm assuming, are events similar in size to what
Yes,
you-
that's why we looked at those 2 events. They also did some other things for Hurricane Sandy, I think donations, so I thought that was a great,
Okay.
a great
Yeah, it
point
speaks a
there,
lot
so.
about them, yeah, sure.
I don't know who J-Dogs is, but Mr. Rocco trademarked that name already, so we.
Okay, and I don't imagine there's any public comment needed. There's not much of the public left. So is there a motion then to authorize Mr. Andrews to go ahead and contract with Perfect Party Rentals for the Queue for the Troops in the amount of $8,186?
So moved.
Seconded.
And Mr. Harvey, that would be subject to the
Subject to
indemnity
an
agreement.
agreement, sorry. So do we amend your motion?
Yeah, minimum motion.
And Mr. Galloway, amend your second?
Seconded, amended.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay. Staying with Mr. Andrews here, we went from,
Don't say it. Don't say it. I know what you're thinking.
Party to potty.
we went from bathroom issues with geese to bathroom issues for people. So we're looking now to advertise for portable restroom services for Falls Township facilities. I don't know who wants to take this. Mr. Gray, you want to go, or Mr. Andrews? Doesn't matter to me.
There are various locations throughout the township that require portable restroom facilities. The board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement at this time.
All right, so what have we put together here, Mr. Andrews?
Basically, we looked in. We got 3 quotes from 3 different porta potty companies. George Allen was one of them. That's our current provider. The other provider was Potty Queen, and the other one was Johnny on the Spot. George.
Trademark that name. Oh, I'm sorry. That's his brother.
It's getting a little late. We're all a little punchy, but sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I submitted all the different quotes to Mr. Gray. You should have copies of them. George Allen did come in as the most competitive quote, or our current provider.
Okay. All right, so we're advertising, or are we awarding?
No, we're going to advertise this. We're going to get bids for this.
So everything came in higher than?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right. All right, so we're basically just looking to authorize advertisement for portable restroom services for Falls Township. Comments or questions?
No.
I know one of the things we've had this for a while. It was something I kind of sort of insisted on. I think back when my children were little and we would go to the park all the time, making sure that every porta potty has an automatic or has a dispenser for hand sanitizer was something that when you have little kids using a porta potty, that's one of the things you really want to see when you walk in a porta potty. So that's something we're looking for here too, and that's included in this. Okay, is there a motion then to authorize advertisement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Item 10, we've already addressed earlier this evening. Item 11, consider ordinance adopting a certain intermunicipal agreement regarding purchase of pool chemicals and supplies. Ms. Gallagher, so you getting ready there?
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. As we discussed at the February 3rd meeting, this is an ordinance that will allow us to participate in an intermunicipal agreement with Hatfield Township serving as the lead municipality to enable us to purchase pool chemicals, which Mr. Andrews can tell you a little bit more specifically what we're purchasing. But it allows us to participate in their bid, and because there's a larger quantity being purchased by a variety of townships, the prices are coming in lower. This ordinance will obligate the township for 1 year, and then it can be renewed, so we don't have to come back and do this every year.
Okay. And what's the benefit of going into the intermunicipal agreement?
We can get a better deal on our pool chemicals. It's similar to the salt consortium type, road salt type program. You know, the more municipalities, townships that go into it together, we can get a better rate. Possibly $1 per gallon for liquid chlorine bulk, and hydrochloric acid, probably about a 10-15% savings.
Okay.
That's the estimate.
And how many gallons of chlorine do we use a year, roughly?
This year we used a little under 2,800 this year. I mean, that could vary each year. If it's some years we'll use more.
Okay.
Muriatic acid, hydrochloric we use like 185. That's negligible. So.
Okay.
That's how sunny it is.
All right.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. All right, this would be ordinance 15.
Two.
And Mr. Harvey, if the
Yes.
board is so inclined to pass this ordinance, I would suggest a separate motion then to execute the agreement between Hatfield Township and Falls Township.
Okay. All right, comments or questions from board members?
Oh, nice job, Brian. Nice job.
Okay. All right, you got no public really here anymore. All right, so is there a motion to authorize or to approve ordinance 15-2?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we need a separate motion to execute the agreement with Hatfield Township, is that right? Hatfield
Correct.
Township, yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews,
Yep,
for suffering
thank you,
through that all night.
Minutes from February 3rd, 2015. Mr. Galloway wasn't feeling well, as the record show. He stepped out a little bit ago. Comments or questions regarding the minutes as they are presented?
Excellent minutes as always, Mrs. Poulin.
Okay, no?
Good.
All right, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, bill list. Bills this month in the amount of $1,851,928.61. Of that, $1.8 million, $800,000 is payroll, $200,000 is insurance, $242,000 is insurance. In addition, we have some traffic light repair, traffic signal repairs, about $19,000. And there's another, the road program, about $373,000. So a good chunk, of that 1.8 is made up by those just couple items, and obviously a lot of smaller things. Comments or questions regarding the bill list?
No.
Mr. Gray, do you know if the traffic signal repair, was that for the damage that was right here in front of the building? When they were paving? Did they damage the signals out front? Because I know I came in for a meeting and Armor was set up at the corner. They had 3 or 4 trucks into a hole in the ground.
I believe Armor was doing some work here at the Township building on the lights for our signage on the roadway. Not sure if that was the same project. I could check into that.
I was just curious. It seemed like it was the traffic lights that were out and they were damaged that day, and I didn't know if it was due to the paving or it was something that was on our end.
I'll look into
We were
that.
liable for the cost.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions?
No.
All right, is there a motion to pay the bills, $1,851,928.61?
So moved.
Second?
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay. Engineers report is dated February 13th, 2015. This is the January engineering report. Mr. Sullivan, you've been quiet tonight, gotten off the hook kind of easy here.
I forgot he was here.
Mr. Chairman, based on current weather condition, there isn't a lot of updates for any of our current capital projects. So I don't have anything to add to the engineers report, but I'll certainly answer any questions you might have.
Comments or questions from Mr. Sullivan?
I have none.
Believe it or not.
Okay, motion to accept the engineering report as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Okay, executive session, we had one earlier this evening. And manager comment, Mr. Gray.
Just a few items tonight. The first item, Township received a request from the Faulkner organization requesting release of their remaining escrow for the sidewalk construction at their site. Total amount remaining is $27,967.50. The project has had a final inspection, and the work is complete to the satisfaction of T&M Associates. The board is asked to consider releasing $27,967.50 to the Faulkner organization.
Questions?
No.
No.
Okay, is there a motion to release the escrow amount to Faulkner?
Yes. I'll make the motion, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Second.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
The township received a request from Connor Galloway, representing the Bucks County St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. They're requesting a donation in the amount of $6,000 for their 27th annual parade. The township did set aside money in the 2015 budget for this amount. The board is asked to consider this donation subject to receiving a budget for the project.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the $6,000 to the Bucks County St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee? St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee.
So moved.
Seconded.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Township received a letter from Thomas Hecker regarding the project at WG Lincoln Property, 640 Lincoln Highway, requesting an extension on this project until May 21st, 2015. The board is asked to consider this extension.
Okay, comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the extension?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Township also received a letter from Mr. Hecker regarding Buckingham Retail Wawa located at West Trenton and Pine Grove Road, requesting an extension on this project until May 21st, 2015. The board is asked to consider this extension.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the extension to May 21st, 2015?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The township declared a state of emergency beginning at 6 a.m. today through tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., February 18th, due to the storm from earlier today. Per the township ordinance, the manager may declare a local emergency subject to ratification by the Board of Supervisors at the next regularly scheduled meeting. At this time, the board is asked to approve this action imposed by the township manager.
Okay. Is there a-
Make the motion.
Okay.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Board comment, Mr. Rocco?
I have none. Good night. It's been a long night.
Mr. Dents?
No comment.
Mr. Boraski?
Same.
Yeah, and I'll just echo, it's hard not to take things personally sometimes, and certainly some of the comments made earlier by a couple of the speakers definitely get under my skin, and so I do apologize for losing my temper. I try not to do that. I think most people that pay attention to these meetings will recognize that I usually don't. I hope people understand that sometimes some of the accusations and some of the insinuations that were going on, do get, it's tough not to take it a wrong way. So I apologize for that. And again, if that project ever does come back around, which it probably will at some point, we're going to judge it on its merits, and that's what we have to do in terms of following the law. I want to thank everybody for the time and effort they put in this evening, and for their patience. A lot of people had to wait a long time to get their issues here. So again, thank you very much for your time, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.